ध्याये नित्यं महेशं रजतगिरिनिभं चारुचन्द्रावतंसं रत्नाकल्पोज्ज्वलाङ्गं परशुमृगवरभीतिहस्तं प्रसन्नं पद्मासीनं समन्तत् स्तुतममरगनैर्वागकीर्तिं वसानं विश्वादिं विश्वबीजं निखिलभयहरं पञ्चवक्त्रं त्रिनेत्रम् ॐ पश्चिमवक्त्राय नमः, ॐ उत्तरवक्त्राय नमः, ॐ दक्षिणवक्त्राय नमः, ॐ पूर्ववक्त्राय नमः, ॐ पूर्ववक्त्राय नमः, ॐ सर्वेभ्यो वक्त्रेभ्यो नमः. I meditate eternally upon that great Lord Śiva. I meditate upon him who shines like a mountain of silver, as if his many limbs are adorned with ornaments. I meditate upon that great Lord Śiva, who is seated in the lotus posture. All about him, gods and demons and various other beings are praising him and hymning him. I meditate upon that Lord who is holding in one hand an axe that cuts asunder all duality, who is holding a deer representing the mind subdued, who assures fearlessness and offers boons. I meditate upon that Lord absorbed in samadhi, seated atop the lotus of my heart. He is the ground upon which the universe rests and the seed from which it springs forth, the destroyer of all fear. I meditate upon that five-faced, three-eyed Lord. Karpura Gauram Karunavataram Samsarasaram Bhujagendraram Sadavasantam Hridayarvinde Bhavam Bhavani Sahitam Namami Kailasa Pirtasana Madhya Sangstam Bhaktaischa Nandhyadhibhisevyamanam Bhaktarti Davanalamaprameyam Dhyaye Dhumalingita Vishwarupam. I bow to Śiva, who is white as camphor, the very embodiment of compassion, the essence of the universe adorned with the garland of serpents, whoever dwells in the lotus of the heart together with Bhavani. One should meditate upon Śiva as seated at the center of his throne on Kailasa, worshipped by Nandi and other devotees. He is the immeasurable wildfire that burns away the afflictions of his devotees, and who, as the cosmic form, is the lingam, tenderly embraced within the yoni of Uma. Om Namah Shivaya, Shivaya Namah, Sarvebhya, Vaktrebhya, Shivayebhya Namah. Om Namah Shivaya. Today is an exceedingly special day. It is Shivaratri. So as you know, tomorrow is the Śrāvana, not Śrāvana, but Bhadrapada Amavasya. So that means it's the new moon. And the night right before the new moon is very, very sacred to Lord Śiva. It's like the crescent moon that adorns the crown of Lord Śiva. It's the 28th day of the waning moon. So the 14th day of the waning moon, or the 28th day of the cycle. So if you look in the sky tonight, you'll see that little sliver of the moon, a crescent at the very bottom of the moon. And that's what is adorning the peak of Mount Kailash, who is the embodiment of Lord Śiva. So today is that day when we think of Lord Śiva. Of course, every month there is this day called Shivaratri. But the main one, the big one, is called Mahashivaratri, and that's in February and March. But there's like this Śrāvana Shivaratri also, which is also, I would argue, just as important, or at least, for Shaivas, more important than any other Shivaratri. All Shivaratris are great. The Mahashivaratri in the month of Magha is like the greatest. But this Shivaratri, the Śrāvana Shivaratri, is also pretty fucking badass. So it's a good day to think of Lord Śiva. And it's the last class we're going to have this year for the month of Śrāvana. And I'm so excited because it's quite a special class, I think. I'm going to do two things, actually three things. Firstly, we're going to go over the Śiva Padhati. So by the end of this class, hopefully you'll have pretty much the whole Śiva puja down. I'll walk you through all the mantras for the worship of Lord Śiva. And maybe I'll just say this now with regards to the first thing I want to do today. I sometimes take for granted, like, how grounding it was to spend so many innumerable hours really in all those Śaiva temples of my youth. So when I was a kid, I'm just in these temples and I'm hearing these mantras all night long. Shivaratri, we would be there all night, and 2 times, 3 times, sometimes 4 times a week, we'd just be there for hours. So my grandfather would be doing things. I'd just be a naughty kid, running this way, running that way. But I would be there on the premises of the temple, and always I would hear these Rudrabhishekams, I would hear these homas and various other things, and these mantras were just saturating the psyche, the subconscious. And for so many years of my life, like that was the focus, just doing lingam puja, just worshipping Lord Shiva. And now coming to the somewhat more extreme and radical practices within the essence of Shaivism, the Shakta practices, sometimes I take for granted how grounding and how foundational all those years as a kid really was for me. I don't know. So the first point I want to make is that when we do certain practices, especially Shakta practices, as far as worshipping Devi is concerned, it's pretty dramatic, and you have to recall that these practices are rooted in the Smaśāna, in the cremation ground. It was in the Smaśāna where these energies were first contacted, arguably, by the earliest Shaivas, as we've been discussing together over the course of the past few lectures. Now, in the Smaśāna, these energies are, of course, fierce and unfettered expressions of reality. They are sometimes kind of chaotic, sometimes kind of disconcerting. And what to say of the sadhanas associated to these divinities? Sometimes we feel a bit ungrounded because all the structures and rules by which we live our lives, how we look upon ourselves, how we look upon society, how we think we ought to live in this world, what's right, what's wrong, what's God, what's the world, what's pure, what's impure, what's good, what's bad, like the basic idea of morality even, whether or not it's wrong to kill an animal. Like all of these things are thrown into question when we start Devi sadhana. So Devi sadhana, Shakti sadhana doesn't have to be this way, but often it brings with it a level of chaos. Why? Because Devi essentially is Svatantriya Shakti. So Lord Shiva essentially is freedom, and that freedom is personified as Devi. So to really articulate freedom, to really get to the essence of reality, we must worship Shakti. And today, we'll look at the Vijnana Bhairava, and I'll show you a few verses where that is stressed. The only way to understand Shiva is through Shakti. Like worshipping Shakti is arguably the highest practice in Shaivism. But it's something that we came to from the foundations of worshipping Shiva. So it's almost like we have to go from the Bhupura to the Bindu, and you can't jump to the Bindu without to some extent acclimating yourself to the energies of the Bhupura. And so Lord Shiva is the essence, arguably, but the essence of the essence is Shakti. And when we jump to the essence, that's wonderful and that can work for some people, but often it can also be a bit disconcerting if there isn't that like calm, peaceful, grounded center. If one hasn't attained the highest sattva, then these practices that work with rajas and with tamas can be ruinous for one's intellect and consciousness. So before you start worshipping with the pañca-Makaras and various other transgressive things, like before you start doing bali, and before you start offering fish and meat and wine and whatnot, and before you engage in the worship of yoginis and dakinis and invite them to come drink your blood and eat your flesh and possess you, before you engage in all those Smaśāna sadhanas, it might be nice actually to have your feet firmly planted in Kailasha Loka, or to have that Shiva Bhava firmly ingrained so that you will be unshakable. So then in the midst of all the craziness, because Mother Kali, when she is called, she will dance. And as she dances, in the fire and cataclysm of her sweeping ecstasy, you will be Shiva. Without worshipping Shiva, you cannot become Shiva. And until you become Shiva, the energies of Mother Kali might wreck you as a jiva. That's the thing. It's like when we're talking about Devi, she's our mother. Of course, our mother is only there to help us progress spiritually. But when we talk about Devi as Kali, we're talking about that spiritual syllabus, which is on an accelerated path, you could say, using the understanding of Kali that we have. So if you want that, if you want Ma, and of course most of us here, we feel that craving, our hearts pant after Ma, we should plunge into her. We should plunge into Ma, jumping into the void, throwing caution to the wind. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't, I think, take an interest in foundations first. And Shiva Puja, I think, is such a good foundation. And so I just want to say this, like, insofar as you're pursuing Shakti sadhanas, you're doing Shakti Puja, like worshipping Ma Kali in a ritualistic context. Say you took Diksha into a Kali mantra or some other Shakti mantra, and you're doing japa, the daily and consistent repetition of that mantra. Let's say you're doing homas or any other kind of practices involving Shakti. It would be good to integrate into your daily practice the sadhana we're going to propose in today's class, the Shiva sadhana. And it's very simple. It's just a simple Shiva Puja. And the thing about Shiva Puja, as we've said in other places, is that it's really simple. It's elegant and beautiful. Of course, it can be really elaborate, but there's a simplicity to Shiva, which especially later in this talk, later in the evening, you'll discover in the Vijnana Bhairava Tantra, a simplicity that goes beyond all forms. But nonetheless, a form will be presented, but that form is the simplest of forms. It's so grounding and so sweet. If you do nothing else but pour water over a lingam every day, you'll find that, I think, my conjecture is this, I think you'll find that this will greatly help your Shakti sadhana, especially when things start to go a little bump in the night. Not to say they will, but they will. She has a way of doing that. In any case, Notice what happens when you pour water on the lingam. You're cooling him down. So we take cool water. Of course, milk is cooling. When we take a milk bath, the idea is that it cools down the whole body. So pouring milk. Yogurt is really cooling. My grandmother used to caution against eating yogurt at night. There's that old wives' tale. I love yogurt and pickles. And so every night I would demand yogurt. And my grandmother forbade me from having yogurt at night because she didn't want me to catch a cold. So the idea is that at night we don't bathe our heads. So you don't take a head bath at night, because then your head will cool down, you'll catch cold. And women who are on their period also, there's a old wives' tale that they shouldn't take a head bath because it will drastically change the temperature of their body. And so during that time of menstruation, the body is heated up. And so if you suddenly radically change the temperature of the body and suddenly cool it down, you can get a kind of backlash. So there are old wives' tales like this, like don't wash your head when you're menstruating, or don't wash your head at night, and certainly don't eat yogurt at night. Because yogurt is very cooling, and at night it's already cold, and if you eat yogurt, it's just cold on cold, and you'll catch a cold, So whenever I asked for yogurt, my grandmother was quite cold to me about. No, I'm kidding. So you can't get yogurt at night, but yogurt is cooling. See, so milk, yogurt is cooling. Even like ghee, there's something about ghee. I mean, ghee is of course oil; it can be kind of heating, but there's something about ghee that's calming and soothing. So we say ghee is quite cooling. It cools the brain down. That's why we argue that one should take a lot of ghee. Every day you should have a spoonful of ghee. Yogis always argue this. Mix it into your tea, mix it into your milk, just take it, and it cools your brain. So ghee is an important supplement. So milk, yogurt, ghee, and honey, of course. Honey is just so sweet. I don't know why honey cools you down, but it's just one of those things. And I think that's why it has a heating quality also. I have to say ghee and honey have a heating quality. But in any case, when you pour them on Śiva, especially the water, especially the milk, especially the yogurt, the idea is that you're cooling him down, which is exactly what we need in the context of this sadhana. Like we need somehow for the brain, which tends to be heated during the course of Shakti sadhana, we need it to cool down. We need to cool down. We need to chill the fuck out, and these pujas, these sadhanas will help us do just that. So the sadhana I'm going to present today is a very simple Śiva puja, and my recommendation is that everyone incorporate it. Just say these mantras. And of course the mantras will all be made available for you so you can see them. But say these mantras every day. Invest in a lingam. It can be any old rock, but it's nice to just purchase a lingam that you love. A small one will do. And every day bathe that lingam. And you'll find that this can give you a lot of grounding in your subsequent sadhanas. So that's the first thing I want to do. Let's do Śiva puja. And now having presented it as a foundational sadhana, hopefully we can encourage everyone to daily take up Śiva puja or Śiva sadhana in order to prepare for Shakti sadhana. Of course, the two things can happen together. Now, the second thing I want to do tonight, having explored the Śiva sadhana, is I want to give you a running commentary on some of the pañca-Brahmā mantras. So this is maybe the first time we're going to introduce those mantras, and they are the foundational mantras of Śaivism. So you'll recall a few lectures ago, we told you that story of the early Śaivas, like Agora Shiva, you call them Atimargins, you could say, like the ascetics, the early Śaiva ascetics. And so now you can call them Kāpālikas or Kālamukas. Now the modern word is Aghori, but not even. I think this is even before any notion of Kāpālikas. So this would be like Atimargins, Mahavratins, etc. When they went to the Smaśāna, and this is arguably the beginning of Śaivism, they went there equipped with 5 mantras. And they got these mantras from the Yajur Veda. So in one sense, the Atharva Veda is attributed as the foundational Veda of the Tāntrik tradition. And it's true that in the Sri Vidya tradition, there are many hymns and mantras from the Atharva Veda. But as far as Shaivism is concerned, as far as Śaiva Tantra is concerned, it's the Yajur Veda, I think, that is the foundational Veda for Shaivism, for Śaiva Tantra. Because in the Yajur Veda, we find this hymn called the Shri Rudram, which we'll talk a little bit more about tonight. And that is arguably the foundational hymn of the tradition, because it is the hymn in which Rudra, Śiva, is uniquely identified as the absolute reality. And this is important because, as I said before, in the Vedic tradition, there are many names for divinity, and each name is like a different flavor of the absolute. And in the Yajur Veda, in the Shri Rudram, which by the way is in the very middle of the Yajur Veda, in the Shri Rudram, it's Lord Śiva, it's Rudra, the fierce and terrifying aspect that is exalted as the absolute. So this is the essence of Kālī, of spiritual destruction, of this obliteration of the mind in this rather dramatic and fierce sadhana in order to attain that which is beyond the mind, Unmana. So in the Shri Rudram, we get the mantra Namah Shivaya, the first, the Panchakshari mantra, it's called the 5-syllabled mantra. And I think you'll be excited to know that as the Shri Rudram is in the middle of the Shri Yajur Veda, the Namah Shivaya mantra is in the middle of the Shri Rudram. Just think of the symmetry here. How brilliant. In the middle of the middle, meaning in the essence of the essence. in the madhya of the madhya, is this mantra Namah Shivaya. And you can see there's a primordial fiveness to it. Na-ma Shivaya. And we talked a lot about this in a lecture. 2 lectures we gave. One, I gave a lecture called The Most Important Shiva Mantra. I think I called it The Most Powerful Shiva Mantra or something clickbaity like that. And that was in 2024 Shivaratri, I think. We gave that lecture. This year we gave another lecture called How to Practice Shaivism, I think. And there we talked about the Shiva Mantra and we presented a verse from the Raurava Agama. Chid drishatmani drishtvesham. This is a good verse to memorize actually because it's at the heart of what sādhana looks like, not just in the Śaiva tradition, but arguably like across the board in Tantra, even the Tantric Buddhist traditions when it comes to meditating on deity. So deity yoga, this is the way to do it. Chid drishatmani drishtvesham tyaktva vritti marichakam labdva shiva padachayam dhyayet panchakshari suddhi. Having visualized or seen the Lord in one's own heart through the eye of consciousness, having renounced all the modifications or distractions of the mirage-like mind, and having, above all, attained the cooling shade of Lord Shiva's grace, that is to say, having taken Diksha and having taken refuge in a teacher, one should now, or the wise one, Suddhi, should now contemplate or rather meditate upon the 5-syllabled mantra. And in that lecture, we gave many different versions of the 5-syllable mantra. We presented the Om as the 5-syllable mantra, A, U, Ma, Nada, and Bindu. We presented Hom, which is the Ha, Prasada mantra, along with the other 4. And then also we presented Namah Shivaya. And then of course, Om Namah Shivaya is the Shatakshari, is a kind of modern modification of Namah Shivaya. But also there's an esoteric way to read Namah Shivaya. There are infinite ways to understand that mantra. You can think of it as Na, negation, Ma as in Mala, Shi as in Shiva, Va as in Vame or Vamakshi as in Shakti, and Ya as in sexual union or Yamala. So Na, Mala, Shiva, Vama, Yamala. So Namah Shivaya means that absolutely pure, in fact pure in the sense that it's beyond categories of pure and impure, that absolutely pure and stainless union, and by sexual union here is meant non-difference or oneness, of Shiva, formless pure consciousness, and Shakti, who is embodied as all forms, the clear light and the void, or the energy and the space, Prana Shakti and Akasha. So you can think of this Shiva and Shakti as being the ultimate nature of reality, but it's not just Shiva and Shakti. Importantly, it's the Yamala, the union of Shiva and Shakti. So Shiva and Ya refers to like Para, and Apara. It refers to like Para, Apara, and Para. So this Trinity, and this Trinity is considered to be the absolute, Namala, absolutely pure. So that's one way to think of the Panchakshari. Also you can think of it as like Na, negation. How do I negate my own essence nature as Shiva, as pure non-dual consciousness? Through Maya. So Na, Ma. And Ma means mother, but Ma has the connotation of to measure. So Ma, the dhatu in Sanskrit, means to measure or to divide. So by dividing, vibhagaha, by saying there's Pushpa Devi, there's Viranata, there's Chris, by saying this, I'm like doing this Ma. I'm dividing. And I'm saying that's that, and this is this, and that other thing is that other thing, And by doing that, I'm negating my true nature, which is the one reality in all things as all things. And that's part of the game. So, Na, I am not Shiva because of Maya. But then one day, as I wander about in this scorched and blasted desert of the world, I crave an oasis of delight. And then that day comes this inspiration to pursue spiritual life. This is called Shaktipata. So she here can refer to that moment when I'm suddenly interested in realizing God. She. And the moment I have this articulated desire, I will approach a guru. That's a fact. When we want to learn to drive, almost always we're going to go to a driving school. We're going to like apprentice ourselves to somebody who knows how to drive and learn from them, if we're really serious about driving. Otherwise, if we try to self-teach ourselves, we can get into trouble. And also it shows that we're not that serious. We don't really want to learn because we're not willing to be part of like an apprenticeship or a lineage. So Va refers to the guru actually, but more importantly, it refers to Shiva coming in the form of the guru, coming in the form of a teaching, upadesha, and Va means vak or vach, speech. And that speech might be mantra diksha, when your guru whispers into your left ear the mantra and then you are formally initiated, but it could also just be an upadesha. And so in the next class, which is actually still part of this class, as I'll tell you about in just a few moments, we're going to give an upadesha from the Vijnana Bhairava, the first few verses. And it can be one and done, like once we hear what Lord Shiva has to say about the ultimate nature of reality, remembering that Lord Shiva alone is the guru, that's Va, that's the speech of Lord Shiva. the tantras, all the agamas, like the collection of texts that make up our tradition, this is the va. And then as a result of that Shaktipata, that desire for union with Shiva, as a result of that speech, that teaching in the tantras and agamas in the form of the guru, we attain yoga. So ya here refers to Yamala, but Yamala in the sense of yujya, sayujya, yoga. So we become one with Shiva. I become Shiva, or I become one with Shiva as a result of the guru's word, which I now get access to as a result of Shiva's grace. And this frees me from the negation of my own essence nature through Maya. How beautiful. So when we take something like Namah Shivaya, there's infinite meaning in it, and it appears in the middle of the Sri Rudram. But the whole Sri Rudram itself is often chanted in a process called Rudrabhishekam, which means the bathing of Lord Shiva. So many of you know the opening of the Rudrabhishekam. Om Ganana Antva Ganapatingo Mavamahe. So that mantra, right? That's the distinctive sound of the Sri Rudram, the opening moment. So anyway, there's a Sri Rudram, there's this Namah Shivaya mantra in the middle of the Sri Rudram, and that's all in the Yajur Veda. But there's something else in the Yajur Veda. As far as Veda is concerned, I know it's very important to remember that no books are meant. So Veda just means knowledge, and that knowledge vibrates in reality, accessed by anyone who has the spiritual sensitivity to be able to access them. So we don't really mean any books, we know that. But just for colloquial use, when we say the word Veda, we are referring to a set of books. Four books that appear at different times in history that different communities in India have mastered like uniquely. And so there are 4 Vedas, arguably, and the Yajur Veda has 4 parts. So 4 Vedas can be split further into 4 parts. So each Veda then will have what is called a Sangita portion, which are like hymns to the various deities that the Veda introduces us to. A Brahmana portion, which is like a liturgical manual of like mantras and rituals to perform. 3, what is called an Aranyaka. And Aranyaka is hard to explain because it's kind of ritualistic, but a little more philosophical. And then you have Upanishad. So these aren't in order, by the way. Aranyakas and Upanishads, Sangitas and Brahmanas, they might get scattered all throughout. But if something is a wisdom teaching, a Gnostic teaching, or like by Gnostic I mean like contemplative teaching, it can be called an Upanishad. And if something is like a ritual instruction, it can be called a Brahmana. And if it's a hymn, if it's a, litany, if it's litanical, it's a Sangita. If it's liturgical, it is a Brahmana. And if it's philosophical, it is an Upanishad. Now, Aranyaka is something like an Upanishad. It's somewhere in between liturgical / litanical and in between philosophical. And it literally just means forest text. So I think it refers to the action of going into the forest in spiritual retreat and taking time and space to actually contemplate what these rituals mean. And arguably the Upanishads emerge from this kind of contemplation. Now in the Taittirīyāranyaka, which is part of the Yajur Veda, we get 5 mantras. And the whole of Shaivism is indebted to these 5 mantras. In fact, our Diksha, when we were kids, into Shaivism was with these 5 mantras. I didn't even, Namah Shivaya, of course, we received as part of our Śaiva Diksha, but like these were the 5 that we were formally invested with as, we got the consecrations of things being poured in our head, like the oil and whatnot. So as my grandfather would pour oil in my head, these were the mantras that were given to us and whispered into our ears. Why? Because these are our foundation mantras. And so the set of 5 in Namah Shivaya, Namah Shivaya, but also the set of 5 nectars, the set of 5 offerings, the 5 transgressive offerings, all of these things, these sets of 5 heads of Lord Shiva, the 5 powers and the 5 actions of Lord Shiva, all of that can be traced back perhaps to this idea of Lord Shiva having 5 heads, but also 5 parts of the body. So these mantras are considered to be Lord Shiva's sonic form. So when you receive them, what happens is you, like to use a new age phrase, download the sonic form of Lord Shiva. And so all 5 mantras together when chanted like create Lord Shiva's body. There's a beautiful mantra for para that appears in our ritual manual too. Pancha shalibibir vibhakta mukadopan madhya vakshastalam basvan mauli baddha chandrashakalam apina tung sanim mudram akshugunam shadadya kadasham vidyam. So in that mantra it says pancha shat lipi vibhi. So divided into 50 syllables is your beautiful body, O mother. So here we're saying that mother's body is pervaded with mantra. She's made of vibration and sound. So these 5 mantras, you don't have to think about their meaning. Of course, I've provided the meaning, so we can contemplate them also. But you don't have to think about the meaning. The meaning is not important. The meaning is beautiful, but we're selecting for the vibration beyond the meaning. And this is a profound Tāntrik idea that like words are meaningful not because they point to something. like some meaning. Last week, you'll recall, we had a class on relationships, the yoga of relationships. Particularly, we were talking about the relationship between the subject and object, or the grahaka and the graya. We're talking about the relationship between knower and known, but also the relationship between sound and meaning. So when I say table or tea, how is it that those sounds relate to these images that now appear in your mind? And maybe also some cravings for experience with these things. What's the link? Why does a sound produce an image? How does a sound connect to its meaning? This is something very important to think about. And so here in the Tantric tradition, especially like the Malini Vijayotaro Tantra, we're saying that like, no, it's not even the word that matters. I mean, that's important, but it's the literal phonemes that make up the words that are meaningful in and of themselves, without any semantic or without any linguistic consideration beyond its sound. This is a remarkable idea and a unique idea, I think, in Tantra. So having said that, these mantras are so powerful in terms of their vibration that you don't need to think about what they mean, you just have to chant them. But that being said, pronunciation is somewhat important, and so it might be nice to just go on YouTube. By the way, these mantras, being the foundational mantras of Shaivism, they're so popular that you can just go on YouTube and type in pañca-Brahmā mantras. That's what they're called, the 5 Brahma mantras, pañca-Brahmā mantras, and just listen to some chanting on the internet. And that might be helpful just to hear how these mantras sound. There's various different styles of chanting them, but just doing our best is the most important thing. But that means we should really do our best. A lot of people are like, oh, but it's the feeling. Yes, and if you really felt, you would try your best. You know? We wouldn't be sloppy with these things. So we want to do our best to pronounce them correctly by practicing them. That's what's required, like investing in learning how to say these mantras. And saying them in a particular order, by the way. That's important too. Because these mantras are powerful, one thing to remember is that they're also kind of scientific in the way that they're presented. So you can say any one of these mantras, but ideally we say all 5. And importantly, we say the 5 in a particular order. Starting with Sadyojata, moving on to Vamadeva, moving on to Aghora, moving on to Tatpurusha, and moving on to Ishana. So there's like a particular way in which we chant it. And like in the Raurava Agama, we learn that this corresponds to the various limbs of Lord Shiva. You know, so each of these things make up a different part of his body, and so the way we construct his body with mantra has also been quite scientifically prescribed, which is interesting. So that's the second thing I want to do today, is we're going to look at the pañca-Brahmā mantras. And the third thing we're going to do today, it's exciting, once we finish all of this, once we've discussed to our heart's content the Śiva puja, having gone through all the ritual procedures and all the mantras and all the things, we'll take a Q&A maybe. But mainly what I want to do, I mean, not mainly, this is mainly also, but also after all of this, we'll do our Vijnana Bhairava Tantra class. And I wanted to make an announcement. This is so exciting, but today's like a special day. It's like a singularity for us. So I've been thinking about something for a really long time, for years now. I was thinking about leaving that Yoga World Heart Studio because it was just kind of a scramble to get to the other Zoom link, and often this class would go on late, right? So the Yoga World Heart class was at 7:30, and so to get to the 7:30 class, we'd have to go off of this Zoom link and go into another Zoom link. But because once we get into the flow of things, and we start talking about these things, we forget all about time, and usually we're late to get into that class. Then there's another problem also. Not only is it like a scramble to go from this link to the other link, the other problem is that like that class was offered through a commercial yoga studio, like an online yoga studio, you know, and so I was hired to teach that class like in 2020, way back when. And so I've been teaching, you know, Hatha yoga classes there also. We've been doing teacher trainings and whatnot. But mainly I had this 7:30 p.m. Pacific Thursday evening philosophy section. And so I've been teaching that for about 5 years. But here's the thing, because it's a commercial yoga studio, you'd have to like pay at least $7.50, right? To like go to the class. I think the drop-in pass was something like $7.50 or something like that. And so I guess the purpose was that like people would come and then they would subscribe to the studio and go to the other classes that the studio was offering besides just coming to my class. And also I guess the hope was that people who were interested in the other classes would also be interested in the philosophy class. But that didn't actually happen. Like no one, I think, in that Yoga World Heart community were interested. No one was interested in the philosophy class, but also I noticed everyone in the philosophy class, those of you in this community who would come to the philosophy class, weren't really interested in taking yoga classes outside of that philosophy class with any of the other teachers in the studio. So it was kind of a weird collaboration, I guess. And so I realized that what we would do is we would offer the link for free because we didn't want there to be any financial barriers to spiritual instruction. So insofar as the class cost 750 to attend, we wanted that to be optional and not obligatory or mandatory. So I made it available to anyone who wanted to come, who couldn't or wouldn't pay the 750 drop-in fee. Like we would just give them the link so they could come. And then I noticed most of the people that were in the class were just, coming without having purchased the drop-in pass, which is what we want. It's perfectly fine. And those of you who were paying for the drop-in pass, like you were doing it mainly so you could support us. It's like a guru dakshina for you, and that's like really, really sweet. And then I thought, well, it's kind of sad though that we're because that money mainly goes to the studio. They do pay me. It's like they do give me something, but I think it would be better to support the community more directly than to go through a commercial yoga studio. So for those who do want to support the community and who have been using the Thursday night class as like a portal for Guru Dakshina, don't worry about it. Like that's not the most direct way. And like I think, if you're already like there on the Patreon, like you're already contributing and keeping the community afloat. So like that's really not necessary. And it's really important to me that any kind of barrier of entry to this information be dissolved completely. And so now, the announcement, and this is very exciting, is that we will no longer be offering the Vijnana Bhairava Tantra class through Yoga World Heart, because I mean, the studio owners, they reached out to. I was really excited to support their studio too, because it's a female-run studio. It was like a new enterprise, so I wanted to like just really like be on the team and help them. But now I guess like people really aren't signing up for hatha yoga classes as much as they used to. I think the studio is struggling a bit. I don't know that to be true, but they need to cut classes. So she asked me, the boss of the studio owner, she was like, "Is it okay if we just do every other week?" And I thought, okay, no, this is probably the time and opportunity. So I said, "Ma, it's been a beautiful journey the past 5 years together, but I think it's time like I walk away from this particular studio, and that means." No one can and no one needs to anymore sign up for the class via the Yoga World Heart thing. So a lot of people today were like, "Oh, hey, is there no class? Because there's no link to sign up." Yes, we're no longer in the schedule and there's no longer any sign up required. We're just going to use this same link for the Vijnana Bhairava Tantra class. So I will still be offering the Vijnana Bhairava Tantra class, except it will no longer be through the Yoga World Heart Studio. It will be through our house link, which is also really cool because that means we have one link to rule them all. So if you want to come to like Monday 5 p.m. Pacific Hatha Yoga with Kuleshwari Devi, or Tuesday 3 p.m. Pacific Hatha Yoga with Kuleshwari Devi, or Thursday 5 p.m. Pacific Hatha Yoga with Kuleshwari Devi, it's all the same link as the Monday lecture and Q&A, as the Wednesday 11 a.m. Pacific Hatha Yoga class, as the Thursday classes, the Puja class and the Vijnana Bhairava class, and as the Friday class. You only have to keep track of one link, which I think is great. Advaita. Just one. Not two links, but just one link. So, and it's good because it's like a free link. You just click into it and it takes you right into this room. There's no sign up, no payment, nothing like that. You just like click the link and here you are. Wherever in the world you are, you can just click the link and then here we are all together so many times throughout the week. So I think it's a really wonderful thing. And I'm happy that this change is happening on Shivaratri. I sense a kind of divine will in it, and I'm feeling really called to make some of the more esoteric aspects of our tradition, which for so long have been like guarded behind diksha walls, or more importantly, financial walls. I'm really called now to try to make that as like readily available as possible to all those who are sincere. There's almost an urgency in trying to redistribute, like mass redistribution of this secret knowledge or guarded knowledge. Like it is the common property of everyone, and so it should be redistributed to everyone. And I think this change in our schedule and in our approach will be, I think, very, very aligned with that goal and with our values of accessibility, inclusivity and power. Yes. Okay, good. By the way, am I freezing? Like some of you guys are like kind of freezing up. I'm feeling like the computer is lagging a little bit. I don't know. You know why? It's like exceedingly hot and I'm having that what do you call it? That summer problem again, where the room is so hot that the computer is like overheating and like freezing a little bit. Um okay, good, good, good. So yeah, I think as the sun goes down, it should get a little bit better. But yeah, let's get some yogurt. Let's pour some yogurt on the computer. That's a good idea. Shitala bhava, shitala bhava. Prithivitvam shitala bhava. Samudram gacha, samudram gacha. Oh my God. Yeah, it's a laptop and it's got no I have a fan here. Maybe let me try this. Let me move the fan behind the laptop. Let's see if that will help at all. Okay. Okay, maybe that will do something. Yeah, and there's nothing underneath the laptop to cool it. But it's only like a summer problem. It's so funny because we've been having this summer problem for a little while. And then it was because like the old laptop was just so full of like videos. And so I got a hard drive and I would start moving videos out into the hard drive. But because of 4, 5, 3 hour classes a week, like the videos would just pile up and the computer would get so overloaded with videos. There's so much like stored on the computer that it would start like heating up. So then someone donated this new laptop. Someone very sweet was like, look, you're lagging too much. Here's like, now it's happening again with this new laptop. Fuck, I go through laptops so quickly. But I think the solution is just to kind of like delete the video. So anyway, if I'm lagging today, forgive me. It should get cooler soon, and then hopefully that will go away. Okay, so having said that, this is the announcement that we're gonna have all of our Vijnana Bhairava Tantra classes now like via this same link. So they're like 7:30-ish. So you just like click into this and we'll have our class. Now, because it's Shivaratri and because it's like a singularity in our time together and something new. This is we haven't done this in 5 years to like just do a Vijnana Bhairava class out in the open like this. It's kind of nice, exciting. I thought maybe today, given that we're just starting something new, let's just review the first 23 verses. We'll just go over all of them together. And like, let me take you to this little landing page over here. Oh my God, it's lagging so much. Okay, but if you go over here, you'll see like this is the Vijnana Bhairava Tantra like playlist. It should appear for you in just a few moments, I hope. Is it coming? Mm. Is it is the screen sharing? There, it should there, I think it. Do you guys see the screen? Okay, good. So here on the Vijnana Bhairava
Yes.
Tantra section, like there are 118 lectures in this playlist, and of course it's like a growing playlist, so there's a lot happening because we've been doing this like for 5 years. So all of these classes are the last 5 or so years of Vijnana Bhairava class. So like all of this is like a philosophical preamble to the text. And then this is where we start the text, I think, properly. Um, Here, Devi's dilemma. So verses 1 through 7. So here, verses 1 through 7, all the way to verse 23. These are all like kind of set up for the text, and it's a philosophical teaching. So in one sense, if you go from verse 1 through to verse 23, it's perfectly possible that you realize the absolute. The rest of the text becomes redundant if the teaching in verses 1 2 through to 23 are internalized. So that's the essence of the text. It's called the Jnana Pada. So there in the first 23 verses is the Upadesha, is the highest teaching. And then at the end of the text, Lord Shiva is going to circle back and repeat many of the things that he said in the beginning of the text. So there's a wonderful kind of symmetry to the text where the beginning and the end mirror one another, like a Campbellian hero's journey of sorts, where we go full circle and find ourselves in the same place where we started off, only to find it completely new. So from Vijnana Bhairava Tantra practice number 1, verse 24 onwards, we start going through the practices. And now we're currently on verse 106. So each week we do about like one class, at least one verse, and sometimes we spend more than um, one class. Oh, whoops. Oops. Okay. Okay, better. Anyway, so I'm not going to share my screen anymore, but if you go to the Patreon and you click into collections, you'll see the Vijnana Bhairava Tantra playlist. Now, there are so many videos there, like 118 videos, and the first few videos, like the first, I don't know, 23 or 24 videos, are just the stuff that we're going to cover tonight. Of course, with much more detail, because each of those videos, we go into each verse and talk about it for like an hour and a half, 2 hours, and really contemplate the verse. But now I'm just going to walk you through all 23 verses and give you the teaching in sum. It's a Uttama Vada, it's a Uttama Upadesha, meaning it's the ultimate teaching of reality, and in one flash we can get it and be permanently realized. But of course, for some of you, this is going to be a review because you've already studied these 23 verses, but they're so profound that they're worth revisiting again and again and again. And for others, this will be an introduction, and because this is the first day that we're going to offer the Vijnana Bhairava Tantra class to the general public, it would be nice, I think, to start from the beginning and just review the 23 verses. Then after we do today's class, next week I'll pick up with verse 106 or 107 again, where we left off last week. And the thing to note is that if you haven't been following along with the Vijnana Bhairava Tantra series, and like you're just joining now, you're just starting your journey, it's perfectly fine to start with verse 107, especially given that after today you'll have a kind of foundation for the text. You'll at least understand the first 23 verses and what the text is about, and what makes it a kind of atypical Tantra, and what makes it a very refined and difficult Tantra, actually a very advanced Tantra. But based on that, based on what we talk about tonight, you can just start anywhere in the text. Because at the end of the text, Lord Shiva reassures us that any one of these mantras, or I should say, any one of these practices is sufficient for the fullness of realization. Like you don't have to practice all 112 yuktis. And Lord Shiva does list 112 different practices, but any one of them will do. So you can literally start with any verse. I know somebody, a great Shaivacharya, who when he was in the ashram as a kid, just found this book in the library, picked it up and opened it to a random page, read a random verse and had a very profound spiritual experience when he was a very young boy. And it was so transformative that even when he talks about it now, you can see like he's still kind of enjoying the effects of that experience, which happened for him just by reading a random verse in the text. So like you can, I think, pick any verse out and even treat the text as like a tarot sort of situation where you just randomly flip it open and see what your eyes land on, and that's the verse that's perhaps the best one for you. So it's a bit like throwing darts at a dartboard. Lord Shiva just gives you a bunch of stuff, just hoping that at least one of them will stick. Now, often these verses go together. So like the verses flow into one another sometimes, and there are certain kramas or sequences. So there are ways to practice the verses in tandem with one another, like verses 24 all the way through to 27. That creates a kind of krama, a sequence of practice, just focusing on the breath and the breath pause and feeling the energy flow through two chakras. Then in verse 28, we're introduced to a third chakra and we feel energy flowing through all three chakras. Then in verse 29, we're introduced to yet more chakras. And in fact, there's no number of chakras defined in verse 29. So you're allowed to just feel as many or as few chakras as you want. Then in verse 30, we get no less than 12 chakras. And then we do a practice with the 12 Kālis and the 12 vowels. 16 vowels, but we get rid of the semi-vowels. And with the 12 vowels, we flow up the chakras one by one. And there are 12 chakras corresponding to 12 vowels, corresponding to the 12 Kālis of the Krama. So you can see how like the first 9 practices of the Vijnana Bhairava can all be done together in a sort of sequence. But any one of these can be isolated and done independently as a standalone practice. Now, again, these practices are so profound and so transformative because anyone can do them anywhere. But they're also very difficult because they require a lot of subtlety on our part. So that being said, if you're just starting out, if you haven't been studying the Vijnana Bhairava Tantra, today's class hopefully will orient you a little bit. And from now on, you can just jump in anytime and like any verse will be helpful. And any verse I think will do the job. Okay, so having said all that, these are the 3 things we're going to do today. 1, let's go over the Śiva Padati. We'll just walk through all the mantras one by one so you have a firm and fixed Śiva sādhana that you can do every single day. 2, let's discuss the pañca-Brahmā mantras, the foundational mantras of our tradition. 3, let's plunge into the Vijnana Bhairava Tantra, and today on the auspicious Shivaratri or Śrāvana, let's do something for the first time. Let's open the Vijnana Bhairava Tantra to the public, and let's cover the first 23 verses together just to review it for some of you and to introduce it for many of you. So that's going to be today's agenda. Like I was saying when I was going through a lot of lag and paused the recording, we're all going to be meeting in Kuleshwari's house in Colorado, August 27th through to 31st. So if you want to come, send us a DM or something. I'm very, very excited for that and seeing you all in person. Okay, so let's get started. Let me take you to the Padati. This might be a problem because we do have to actually look at some mantras right now. But every time I try to do that, it lags so much. So like now I think it's okay, right? Like now I'm talking, I feel like I can see you guys moving and it doesn't seem to be too laggy. But the moment I share the Padati, in other words, when I share the screen, it gets really wonky. So here's what I'm going to do instead. I'm just going to put it in the chat, okay? So I'm just going to share the link here in the chat. And those of you who are new to this class, do not share this document like publicly. Don't publish it anywhere. There are indeed Bhairavangshas that protect this parati, because it is indeed a Diksha parati. It's something that we give after initiation within the context of a lineage. And although we are making it available to the public, there is still a kind of sanctity and sacredness around a parati. And so we try our best to kind of maintain that sacredness. So it's really just something within our community and within our parampara. And not because, oh, other people don't have access. Anyone can access it, but it's not for everyone, that being said. So, yeah, just don't share this, but I will put it in the chat. So there it is. You can click into that. And so this is the document that we're working on together. And last week, we talked about how important it is, above all, to like have a padati, because a padati is nothing more than a collection of mantras in a particular sequence, which walks you through the way to approach the deities. And usually there are more than one deities invoked. More than one deity invoked in the Padati. It's a puja krama. So mainly this is a Padati for the goddess Kali, but you'll see that there are all the various deities, starting with the Guru, and then going into Ganesh, and then Shiva, and then Surya, and then Narayana, and then Lakshmi, and then Saraswati. There's Agni, there's Durga, so there's a kind of Pancha-Devata Smarta thing going on, and the 9 planets, and the 10 directions, and the 10 forms of Vishnu, and like all of that is being worshipped. Of course, Sri Ramakrishna, Sarada Devi, Vivekananda, but then mainly it's a Kali puja, right? But within the context of this Kali puja, of course, there's going to be Shiva puja. In fact, we do Shiva puja no less than 3-4 times actually in the Padati, like we were saying some lectures ago. So I'm gonna try now to share the screen. I'm so sorry if it lags a bit, but you should be able to see this Shiva puja. Tell me if you can. Yeah, Shiva puja. Okay, cool. So, like we said a long time ago, if you want to do a very simple puja, it's enough to just offer a single flower. So you can get a white flower or any other color, and then just say Om Namah Shivaya, Ete Ganda Pushpe Shivaya Namaha, and then place that on your lingam or place that at the feet of your murti or your picture. Murti means statue. So this is it. And you might, from this alone, get a profound response. It's very possible that a single flower alone is enough. In fact, it's also superfluous, because simply thinking of Shiva, simply abiding in the present moment is enough to contact Shiva. But as far as ritual action is concerned, a simple, meager flower offered in all sincerity is the highest puja. And it says so in the Bhagavad Gita. Sri Krishna says, even a leaf offered with sincerity, I accept graciously. So this is the short version. Just offer a simple flower to Lord Shiva. You can do that every day, and that counts as Shiva Puja. But now let's offer an extended version. I'm sorry, I made a mistake and I missed 2 mantras. One, I missed the Rishyadi Nyasa, which I will try to double back and talk about another time. And I also missed, what else did I miss? Oh, and I missed the Manasa Puja mantra. So I wanted to include Shankara's hymn, Adi Shankaracharya's hymn, Shiva Manasa Puja, but I didn't get to do that today. I ran out of time. So I'm just going to start with the Karanyasa. So before we worship Shiva, of course, there's a Rishi Adinasa. We talk about Vamadeva as the Rishi, and then we talk about the Chandas, and we talk about all these various things. Let's just skip that for now, and let's go straight to the Nyasa. So before we worship anybody, in fact, before we chant a hymn, before we do any kind of puja, we first consecrate the body, starting with the hands and then with the 6 limbs. So we'll start with the Karanyasa, the consecration of the fingers, in order to worship Lord Shiva. So taking the index finger, we touch the base of our thumb and we say Nang Angushtabhyam Namaha. With the mantra Nang, which is the first sound, Namah Shivaya. So with the mantra Nang, I am now consecrating my Angushta, my thumbs. Then touch the index finger to the thumb like so. So earlier you touched the root of the thumb. Now you're touching the index finger to the thumb, as in Chin Mudra, and you say Mang Tajani Bhyam Swaha. With the mantra Mang, I am consecrating my index fingers. Then touch the middle fingers like so, and say Sheen Madhyama Bhyam Vashat. With the mantra Sheem, I am installing my middle fingers. Then touching the ring fingers like so, we say Vam Anamika Bhyam Hum. With the mantra Vang, I am now installing it into my ring fingers. Then touching the thumb to the pinky like this, Yang Kanishta Bhyam Voshat. And now I install the mantra Yang into my pinky fingers. Then comes this kind of wraparound where you bring your thumb and index finger together on the right hand, place that on the middle of your left palm, and feel like you are tying a string maybe around the left palm. And all the while you say Namah Shivaya, Karatala Prashtabhyam, and then at the end you say Astraya Pat. So you smack the backs of your hands together and then smack these 2 fingers of the right hand into the left palm. So altogether it would be Namah Shivaya Karatala Prashtabhyam Astraya Pat. Again, Namah Shivaya Karatala Prashtabhyam Astraya Pat. So feel like you are wrapping and locking. So pop, 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 wrap, lock. And then that puts the mantra into the hands. You will immediately feel, if you're sensitive to these things, the hands kind of awakening and becoming consecrated. And Pushpa Devi just had some Bharatanatyam classes today. So you can see the roots of all of this are in Tantra, but they're expressed in Bharatanatyam and Hatha Yoga and all the other forms that derive from Tantra. Okay, so having done that, we're going to do the exact same thing, but now with the limbs. So the next thing you can do with Mriga Mudra, sometimes you do it Tattva Mudra, some people do it like this, with this mudra. So touching the thumb to the ring finger, you can do it with that. But I like to do Tattva Mudra because that's the way I learned it from my guru. So Tattva Mudra is where you bring the thumb into the base of the ring finger. So now, touching that to the heart, we say Nam Hridayaya Namaha. Touching that to the forehead, Mang Shirase Swaha. And then here you can use Samana Mudra like this, bringing all the fingers together and touching the crown of your head. Or you can give a thumbs up and then place that thumb on your crown of the head. So this idea is the shika, your top knot. So touching the top knot, we say Shim Shikaye Namaha. Then I like to do Tattva Mudra and touch both arms. Sorry, Samana Mudra like this and touch both arms and say Vam Kavachaya Hum. And with these three fingers, not the index finger, but with these three fingers here, thumb, middle finger, and ring finger, touch both eyes or just below both eyes. And with the middle finger, touch the space in between and just above the eyebrows. It's three eyes here. You see, 1, 2, and 3. So just taking these three fingers and say, yeah, oh, whoops. These three fingers, Yam Netratayaya Voshat. And then again, the same gesture. Namah Shivaya Karadharvashtabhyam Astraya Pat. So putting all of that together now, let's do the whole sequence. Nang Angushtabhyam Namaha, Mang Tajanibhyam Swaha, Shing Madhyamabhyam Vashat, Vam Anamikabhyam Hung, Yang Kanishtabhyam Voshat. Namah Shivaya Karadharvashtabhyam Astraya Pat. Nang Hridaya Namaha, Mang Shirase Swaha, Shing Shikaye Vashat, Vang Kavachaya Hum, Yam Netitraya Voshat. Namah Shivaya Karadharvashtabhyam Astraya Pat. Like that. And of course, if you want to follow some Sanskrit rules like Vam, because it comes before the Kavacha word, before Ka, that M will sound like an NG sound. So that would be like Vam, right? Like Vam becomes Vang Kavachaya Hung. And then that Yang, because it comes before an N, it'll become something like Yan. Yan Netatrayaya Voshat. So if you want to follow those Sanskrit rules, of course you can, right? Like you can alter the anuswara based on the next sound. And so those of you who are studying Sanskrit and who know to do that, you can do that. But also you can just say the bija mantras as they are written. And so I sometimes just do that. I'll just say nang, mang, shing, wang, yang, or nam, mam, shim, vam, yam. Right? So na, ma, shi, va, ya. Like that. And you've installed it into your hands, you've installed it into your heart, and my bad, I didn't include that Rishyadinyasa mantra right here, right now, but I will. Okay, so when you come back to this document, maybe tomorrow or next week, it'll be there for you. Okay, so that's the first section, Nyasa, consecration. Any questions so far about section 1? So everything begins with consecration. Also, Liana, oh my God, we've missed you so much. Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. I was just talking to Digambari and I was thinking like, oh, I can't wait to come to Texas. Like it's we've been planning it, but just to see you again, I'm just so happy, Ma. Just so happy you're back. Jama, jama, jama.
Yeah, I had a realization about
Right?
my commitment to this. So, yeah.
That's my favorite thing. Whenever you want to come, we're here.
Thank you.
One can walk away and come back and walk away again. And the thing is, the tradition will always be here whenever you want it. Jam, it's good to have you back. Okay, so anything so far? Any questions? Let me just see if there's any. So Nyasa, section 1. We're good? Clear? We have that down. It's quite simple, but very, very important. Nyasa is arguably at the heart of the Tantric tradition. Nyasa, just installing, because it's about embodiment. It's about feeling divinity in your own body. Okay, so now that we're done with that, oh wait, maybe there's some chat. No, that's the thing. So Rajiv, there are some Sanskrit rules here. Like for instance, the word kavacha, because it starts with the k sound, vam would sound more like vang, because ka, ka, ga, ga, nga. So the general rule is when there's a dot over the m, it takes the sound of the last nasal of that set, whose letter is the first letter of the next word. So if I have, let's say, the sound na, so netatrayaya, for instance, yam would sound more like, it'd be more like this, like that. See? It sound like this, like Patanjali, right? Patanjali. And then this would sound more like this. Do you see? So the dot over the M, it's affected by the first letter. So if this is K, this will sound more like Vang. And if this is N, this will sound more like Yan, Yan, Yan. But these are all like grammar rules. And often I say, like, if you aren't studying Sanskrit and these grammar rules are not that important to you, for now, don't worry about it. I generally just say, just stick with the sound of the bija mantra, yam, yam or yang, like that, just a kind of anuswara sound, like a nasalized sound. No worries. But if you want to get more precise and if you want to tighten up the pronunciation, there's always more refinement, by the way. And although I haven't started talking about this now, of course, the Sanskrit classes that Bhairavanandji is offering, that's very important because as you study Sanskrit, you'll realize like, oh, there are ways to arrange the sound for more precision. And so rules like this might matter to you. I just wanted to mention them. Like before you say that M with the dot above it, you might want to think about what letter comes next. And then you might want to make the sound that flows nicely into the next letter. You guys, this is some pretty refined stuff. Like the Sanskrit language is not any other language. It's like a divine language. And so every sound is so consciously arranged in the context of every other sound. And so I can't even tell you how much your practice of Tantra and your practice of Indic traditions will be nourished by a sincere study of Sanskrit. Very important. Think of it as like a foundation. Like if you want to do logarithms or something, you should probably start with additions. Similarly, we should probably learn the language in which the texts are written. It feels like a bit of a no-brainer, but I think we're just part of the Judeo-Christian world where we just feel like we should read books in their translations, Never mind that the translators of the Bible might not have any idea of the cultural context in which those words were spoken. And never mind that the translators might have their own agendas because all translations are interpretations. We just accept translations. But I think, no, we should be discerning and we should try our best to learn the language in which a text is written so we can interact with it like prima facie without any interlocutor. That being said, there are so many profoundly subtle rules of the Sanskrit language. And this, how to pronounce the M with the dot above it, is one of these things that are subject to rules, So, but that being said, right now, this is good. Hopefully you have that down. Now comes a beautiful part. And if nothing else, like this is something you can really take away with you and practice to your heart's content. This is called the dhyanam, the meditation. And so chanting the mantra is important. Like we said, chanting the mantra creates the vibration of that deity in your heart. But also, if you don't want to chant the mantra, it's also perfectly fine just to like read it out in English or just to like download into your mind now this image. And by the way, I just spoke to someone recently last weekend at a cafe about an experience that she had, and she was just in Florida, like dancing to some like kind of polyrhythms, drums, or something like that. And she's like totally in a Christian context. She's never encountered Indian spirituality or any of these things. But then she had this vision, like she was dancing, and she was just kind of like she's not really on any psychedelics or anything, but just like kind of went into a trance and vividly saw this and was so confused and had no context for it within the Christian tradition that she was in. So then she went on this journey and eventually discovered within the context of Hinduism this image. And she was shocked that it was pretty much a one-to-one given what she experienced. So this is not a mere visualization. I mean, it is that, and the Vijnana Bhairava Tantra, you'll see, is going to make fun of it. But Vijnana Bhairava Tantra will say this is just like, it's not real. It's just for people with unrefined intellects who need something to meditate on. But that's us, so I'll take it. So here, we're going to get an image of Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva is going to be described to us. And it goes like this. Om Dhyaya Nityam Mahesham Rajata Girinibam Charu Chandravatanksam. I meditate nitya, eternally, dhyayet, or one should, dhyayet, one should meditate always or eternally on Maha Isha, the great Lord, who shines like Rajata, like silver mountain. Giri means mountain. So I meditate upon that great Lord Shiva who resembles a shining silver mountain. Charu Chandra Vatangsam. So he's adorned with the crescent moon like the one you'll see in the sky tonight. His limbs are flashing. Ratna Kalpojvalangam. So Angam means limbs. Ujvala, they're like shining. His limbs are shining as if he is wearing ornaments, ratna, many jewels or gems. Now, if you're having this psychedelic experience of Shiva, you will probably see that his skin is scintillating, like Edward Cullen in Twilight or something like that, when the vampires go into the sun. Like there's something kind of like shining and shimmering and scintillating about his skin, and that is here being described. Also, he's holding four things because he's got four arms in this visualization. Yeah, Edward Cullen, Lala is saying the masculine ideal, sparkly like a disco ball. Mhm. So, he's shining and he's got these four things. In his upper left hand, he's holding an axe. In his lower left hand, he's holding a deer. In his upper right hand, he's assuring fearlessness. And in his lower right hand, he's giving boons. So this is the four-armed Shiva holding axe and deer. So the deer is important, by the way, because the deer represents the mind. And it also links Lord Shiva to his primordial name in the Vedas, Mrigendra, the Lord of the deer, or Pashupati, the Lord of wild animals. Or no, actually, the Lord of bound animals. So Pati means Lord, Pashu means here animals also refers to humans. I think this is the most beautiful thing actually in Shaivism is that there's no real distinction made between animals and humans. We're all of us animals. We're all cattle, and Lord Shiva is the Lord, who is the Lord of the birds, as well as he is the Lord of the ants, as well as he is the Lord of this ant, Nishant. You know, that's the idea that there's no real difference between this Nishant and a bird. They're all Pashus. And all Pashus have one Lord, Shiva. So when we think of him holding the deer, we remember that he is the Lord of all beings. He is the Isha, the Lord of Sarva Bhuta, all beings. But also we think of the deer as a symbol for the mind. So when he's holding the deer, it's like restraining the mind. Now, as I'm speaking to you, I'm sitting on top of a deer skin asana, and that's important. I should not, and my grandfather taught me this, I should not give any talk on yoga. And he said, no, nor should you even write anything about yoga until you yourself are in a state of yoga. That is to say, one should be seated on one's asana and established in meditative silence in order to be able to speak about these topics. And the deerskin asana represents the mind. And so when we sit on top of the asana, meaning a seat made of deerskin, we are symbolically reifying this idea that I've subjugated the mind. And so it's kind of like a throne. Asana means throne. And it's the authority of the yogi. From this throne, one can practice yoga and one can speak on yoga. But it's important that one sits on the asana. It would be improper and impolite to give a class or to study a text or to even meditate without sitting on one's asana. So the deerskin asana is, of course, in dialogue with this Mrigendra image. And so you can see he's holding the deer, he's got an axe, he's showing the gesture of fearlessness and boon giving. And then we learn that he's seated in lotus posture, or he's established in the lotus of the heart. Padmasinam samantat stutamamaraganā vyagakritim vasanam. And he's like absorbed in the deepest meditation. He's calm and peaceful. And all around him, gods are stuta, stava, like praising him and hymning him. And as well as goblins and ghosts, basically all beings are around him, praying to him. Some people who do many psychedelics, they have this experience. They're like, oh my God, who is this? There's some goblin king seated in meditation on a mountain, and all around him are beings praying to him, but some of them are terrifying. You're like, oh, what kind of creatures are these? Some are beautiful devas, shining, resplendent, noble, and others are like creepy, crawly, dark entities. And they're all praying to him because he's the Lord of all, not just the Lord of the high, he's the Lord of the lowly too. He's the Lord of the whole creation because it's all equal and non-dual for him. And therefore, we then move into a slightly more philosophical claim. So he's more than just this four-armed guy seated in the lotus posture. Yes, he's the Goblin King, king of even David Bowie, the Goblin King. You know, so I think of David Bowie with that little baby in his lap, and I'm like, that's me and Shiva. I'm that little baby, and I'm sitting in David Bowie's lap. David Bowie, the Goblin King. Damn, what a film. Anyway, so now we move into a slightly more philosophical depiction of Lord Shiva. So then we say, he's not just this guy seated in lotus posture with four arms, like meditating on Mount Kailash. He's actually the ground of the universe. And this is what you're going to see emphasized in the Vijnana Bhairava in just a few moments. And he's the seed from which it shines forth. So he's transcendent, the source of the universe, and immanent as the ground of the universe. So one has in mind now, Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate. So Purnat in the fifth case, right? In Sanskrit, fifth case means from something. So Purnat means from fullness arises all this fullness. Fullness is here, fullness is there. So beyond this world is fullness. This world is nothing but that fullness. Similarly, beyond this world is Shiva, and in this world, as this world is Shiva. And by the way, I was just thinking, there's this pervasive idea that there's something called the devil. Do you know? Like It's like this idea that there's some evil or some bad in the world. Now, let's say you're on psychedelics, right? Like somebody gives you a strong dose of psychedelics. And then let's say the lights in the room change or something, or you hear a dark and jarring sound. The first thought you might have is this evil? Is this the devil? Is there darkness in the world? And you might start to feel terrified. Notice, anybody who's ever had a psychedelic experience, if you feel fear at all, it's because you suddenly feel unsafe, because you feel like some dark energy is going to co-opt your mind or possess your body, or you've entered into some dark region. Now, the reason I bring up psychedelics is because they're sometimes a very good metaphor for what meditation can feel like. When you go into deep states of meditation, you enter into deep parts of the subconscious. There are moments when you feel frightened because you're like, oh my God, where am I? I'm like in the middle of a dark forest. All the lights are red and there are shapes and they all look kind of misshapen and ghoul-like. And like, where am I? Get me out of here kind of feeling, you know? Like you're trapped in the outer layers of the labyrinth of David Bowie's like situation. So what happens now is the mind has opted into this idea of duality, that there's good and there's bad, and now I'm fucked because I'm like in the bad, you know? But Lord Shiva is the non-dual revelation that brings everything into goodness, into auspiciousness by recognizing that everything is Shiva. So if in that moment of your psychedelics adventure, or if in that moment of your meditation, you remember this, actually it's all Shiva. There's no devil, there's no darkness, there's no evil in the world. It will all become beautiful. You'll enjoy it. You'll say, oh, this is just another beautiful image appearing in consciousness. It's not dangerous to me because it's not anything other than Shiva. It's all one. And that realization that there is Shiva in all things, as all things, if you remember that in the midst of a trip or something like that, you'll feel better actually. You'll just feel calm and you won't be as afraid as you were. The degree to which you can remember that this is all Shiva, to that degree you won't feel afraid. So, over the years now, whenever I've seen people descend into a psychosis, a spiritual psychosis, the symptoms are almost always the same, consistent things. One, there are other people who are at risk of being subdued by darkness, so I have to save them. Two, there are other people who are not experiencing the bliss that I have, so as a born again Christian, I have to go out and like proselytize to them. Three, there are evil forces out there, like the devil, and that's really bad. And therefore, I have to fight them, or I'm afraid of them and I have to run away from them or something. Yeah, and that's the thing. When you encounter darkness, it's like, don't worry about it. You have to set your boundaries. You have to like go to the law and get restraining orders and do all the things that you need to do. Like all of that can happen. You can move out of situations. You can like kick someone out. You can block them on your phone. You can speak harshly to them and even shout at them and maybe even defend yourself through violence if you need. But the main thing is that you don't feel fear about it. In your heart, you know, ultimately all of this is Shiva. And that's of course very important in meditation. Yes, hiss but don't bite. And bite also, it's okay. But inwardly you're thinking all of this is Shiva. Okay, so that's why the meditation mantra says he's Nikhila Bhayaharam. He destroys all fear. Because if you can remember that he is the ground of all reality, and if you can remember that he is also transcendent, that all this will pass, and that beyond all of this is the reality in which you're truly established, then Nikhila Bhayaharam, all the fears will go away. So that shining reality consciousness which dispels all fear, that's Shiva. And now we know that he has 5 faces. That's the Shiva with 5 heads and 3 eyes. Pañca-Vaktra Trinetram. So this pañca-Vaktra is very important for the next part of our class when we start talking about the pañca-Brahmā mantra. So just clock that for now. Then of course the meditation mantra continues with some other stuff. This is a very popular devotional hymn to Shiva. Karpura Gauram Karunavataram Samsara Saram Bhujagendraharam. You all know that song. It's a very famous song. And this one goes, I bow to Shiva, white as camphor. And by the way, camphor, the thing about camphor is that when you burn it, it burns without a trace. Isn't that beautiful? So it's like consciousness. It's just stainless. Camphor just burns and it's gone. It disappears entirely. So he's white as camphor, in other words, pure as camphor. He is the very embodiment of compassion, or in other words, he is the avatara, the incarnation of compassion. He is the essence of the universe, the sara of samsara, and he is adorned with a garland of serpents. Oh my God, we could get into that garland of serpents so much, but I'm just going to leave it alone for now. He dwells in the lotus of the heart together with Bhavani, another name for the goddess. So one should meditate upon Shiva, dhyayet, again, that Sanskrit word dhyayet in the optative means one should. So one should meditate upon Shiva as seated at the center of his throne or his asana, his seat, his deerskin mat or tiger skin mat. in Kailasa, which is in the crown of your head, or in like an actual place in astral space time. So there's a realm, and sometimes you visit that realm in meditation. It's like an actual like headspace in which there's a particular frequency and vibration, and particular beings dwell there. So he's there in Kailasa, established in the middle of the mountain, seated upon his asana. He's worshipped by Nandi. So Nandi is the bull, but others also. So Nandi, Bringi, and others. And he is that immeasurable wildfire that burns away the afflictions of his devotees, and who, as the cosmic form, is tenderly embraced by Uma, or who is the lingam, who is now within the yoni of Uma. So we're contemplating Yamala. Okay, so having done the Nyasa, just chant these two mantras, and having chanted the two mantras, now in your mind, visualize the Lord. Again, Chid Drishatmani Drishtvesham. Drishtva Isham, having seen the Lord through the eye of consciousness in one's own self. So practically what this looks like is imagining that Lord Shiva is in your heart. This is very important. When you first start to visualize a deity, and maybe I'll turn off the screen for this, you're probably going to want to think like he's there outside of you. So you're over here and Lord Shiva's over there, and you're like looking out at him, because that's how we're used to looking at things. So if I'm looking at Liana, or if I'm looking at Kuleshwari, I'm looking at them as if they're over there and I'm over here and I'm talking to you guys right now, right? So when I close my eyes and think of Shiva, I'm very likely going to do the same thing, because my eyes are outwardly oriented. Like the Katta Upanishad tells us, the gods have cursed us such that the eyes are flowing outwards and we never get to see the reality within the source. So now, like flip that. Imagine that Lord Shiva is seated in your heart, looking the same way as you, because he's your very own self. Chid Drishatmani Drishvesham. See the Lord as being your own self, seated in the heart, facing outwards. And so now when you look at Shiva, you're going to feel him in the heart, like focusing on the heart center. Close your eyes, and you don't have to close your eyes, but like in your mind's eye, as it were, feel into the heart and imagine that you're kind of like looking into the heart. This is going to be so hard at first, because our vision is usually locked up here in our face, because we're used to seeing in that way. But through practice, your inner vision becomes unstuck from your physical vision, thanks to pratyahara, and then you'll be able to sort of quote unquote see, although these terms are used very loosely. You'll feel him in the heart and be able to see him in the heart as the self of yourself, the essence of yourself. So now, if you see him outside, that's also fine too, but then you're always running the risk of reifying his otherness, when in truth, he's your very own essence. So therefore, your practice should match your philosophy and subtly recondition your subconscious to align with the truth of things. And the truth of things is that there is no Shiva outside of you. You are Shiva. And so you should think of Shiva in your heart, abiding in the lotus as you, facing the same way as you. Okay. So having said that, the next part of this is so beautiful. Now we're going to worship him in the heart. So I didn't put this in the Padati, I will. So by the time you like look at it next, it'll probably be there for you. But there's a mantra, not a mantra, 5 verses, 5 shlokas that Adi Shankaracharya contributed to Indian literature. In fact, we don't know that this was Adi Shankaracharya. It could have been written by a later Shankaracharya, or by someone who is using the pen name Shankaracharya. But in any case, it's called the Shiva Manasa Puja. It's a hymn in 5 shlokas describing the mental worship of Lord Shiva. Last week, we went through this in depth, I think. Last week, and the week before last week, and the week before that. So by the way, if you go into the Patreon, again, let me show you something here. If you go into the Pūjā series over here, if you click into how to do Tāntrik Pūjā, you'll see the whole class is listed in order. So you can just watch these one video at a time, and one by one you'll learn the mantras to do the whole Kali Puja. But like the last few videos that we did, they've been all about Manasa Puja. So if you're interested in the idea of like mental worship, you'll see all of these, like starting with mental worship versus external worship, mantra for mental worship, all of that is about mental worship. So at least these two, right? So like you can watch these 2 videos, mental worship and mantra for mental worship, and that will walk you through how to do this mental worship. But again, it's your time to be with Lord Shiva in the privacy of your heart. So there's nothing you can't do, nothing you have to do. So in your mind, just worship him inwardly before you start worshiping him outwardly. So think, oh, I'm seeing Lord Shiva in my heart, and now with great love and sincerity, I'm bathing him or bathing the lingam. I'm offering datura flowers and vilva leaves, things that he finds very sacred. Malika jasmine flowers, he loves those. So feel like you're offering jasmine or datura. Feel like you're offering lotus flowers or vilva leaves. Then in your mind's eye, feel that you are offering incense. Like imagine, like in your mind's eye, you're like hearing the bell, visualizing the sound of the bell, waving the incense. Do all of this internally. Then, having offered incense, in your mind offer some fire. Feel that you are waving camphor or a ghee lamp, thrice around his feet, thrice around his heart, 4 times around his face, maybe 3 times around his whole body, or just thrice around his whole body. Just feel like you're doing a kind of arati, a karpura arati to Lord Shiva. Then, having done that, the next thing to do is to offer him foods and fruits and sweets and all sorts of things. Feeling that these things symbolize your karmas, past, present, and future, just offer them all up to Shiva. It's almost like, I guess, the ideal version of confession. When you go and confess to your pastor, you're supposed to feel free. Or if Jesus like dunks you under the water and you are born again, you're supposed to be feeling like free and light and unburdened. So if you have any guilt, any shame, any remorse, give it all up. Just give it to Shiva. Say, oh Lord, I did the best I could. I did what I did based on what I knew with the best intentions. Oh well, here, take it. I won't think about it anymore. I surrender all my karmas to you. So these things can be very symbolic, you know. The dhup, the incense, can represent your prana. The fire can represent your intelligence or brilliance. The flowers can represent your mind or your imagination. And of course, the food represents all your karmas. Like, whatever you want to do, like in your mind, you can wave a yak-tailed whisk. You can offer an umbrella. You can offer a lotus garland or a flower garland. You can shower him with flowers. You can imagine him along with Bhavani, who is the deity, Uma. You can just like in your mind do whatever you want. Ganesh could be on his lap, Muruga could be there. You can worship the whole Shiva Kula or just Shiva. You can see him as a dancing Shiva, although our meditation mantra here from the Pashupati Ashtakam describes him as Sadashiva, the meditating Shiva. But instead you can think of him as a lingam, whatever you want. But it is important here, like we said last week, that you visualize something. You use your imagination and actually creatively visualize Lord Shiva's form. And it is important that you do this dynamic visualization where you carry out the motions of meditation inwardly. It's called Manasa Puja. Okay. So having done that, and by the way, this could be your whole sadhana. Just do the Nyasa, chant the dhyana mantras, and just do Manasa Puja, bas. That could be it. And that would be wonderful. That could be a beautiful Shiva Puja. Anyway, there's a bit more. So if you're still with me, let's just get into the next portion. So for this next portion, we're going to bathe the Lord Shiva. So having done the mental worship, now you can open your eyes and look at your lingam. Okay, so like we showed in some previous classes, I think one of those were called one was called How to Perform Shiva Puja. Another one was called A Brief Shiva Puja. There have been many classes that we've done on Shiva Puja. You might have learned in those classes that when we do the dhyana, we take kurma mudra, tortoise pose, and we hold a flower in tortoise pose. And while we're meditating on Shiva, we're holding kurma mudra, tortoise pose. Then, when you finish your meditation and when you finish your mental worship, you can bring the flower to your nose and blocking your left nostril, you can breathe out with your right nostril using the mantra Yam. Feel that Lord Shiva is flowing out with the breath into the flowers. The energy of Lord Shiva, which you've invoked into your heart, is now flowing out of the breath into the flower. Feeling that Lord Shiva is in the flower, you can then place the flower on top of the lingam and imagine that he is now come into the lingam. Now you don't have to do a formal avahanam for the lingam because the idea is that the lingam is already Shiva. So you don't have to say like iha gacha, iha gacha, iha tishta, iha tishta. You don't have to do any of those mantras. Although you could. So I didn't include them here. But if you want, and those of you who know those mantras, you're welcome to say, Avahayami, Sthapayami, Pujami, you know, oh Lord Shiva, please from my heart, flow into the mantra, flow into the flower, and from the flower, flow into the lingam. At this point, feel that the Lord is before you. In the lingam. Before this, you were feeling the Lord was within you. Now feel the Lord is before you and that you're about to lovingly serve him as the other. So the first thing that we do perhaps is bathe him in the nectar. So bathe your lingam with these items in this following order: water, milk, yogurt, ghee, honey. Now you could have 5 different vessels and pour them one at a time, or you can mix them all into one vessel and pour it all at once. And all the while you'll ring the bell as you pour, and you can chant this mantra: Om Triambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukameva Bandhana Mrityor Mukshi Yamamritat. The Mahamrityunjaya mantra, which by the way appears in the Sri Rudram. So when you chant the Mahamrityunjaya, you're actually chanting the whole Sri Rudram. It's like a substitute for the Sri Rudram. So as you pour, you can chant this mantra and ring the bell as much as you'd like. Again and again, you can chant that mantra. Now, if you'd like and you want, you can also learn the whole Sri Rudram, and you can chant the whole Sri Rudram as you perform this pouring. You know, so there are some technicalities here, like when you pour as part of the Sri Rudram, but it's nice. Maybe you can even play it. I think this is a cool idea. Like before you learn how to chant it, just put it on a stereo, like just put it on, play it out loud, you know. There's so many wonderful YouTube recordings and recordings on the internet of Panditas chanting the Sri Rudram perfectly. And of course, I know our dear Bhairavanand, who's teaching the Sanskrit class here, Bhairavanandji has probably provided also many recordings of chanting the Sri Rudram. So if you'd like, have that Sri Rudram playing, you can chant along, you can learn it at your own pace. That will be our project next year. But for now, it's enough to just chant Triambakam Yajamahe, Sugandim Pushtivardhanam, Urvarukameva Bandhanan, Mrityor Mukshi Yamamritaat. Ring the bell and pour these things either one at a time or all together. Then of course pour water, so you can bathe Lord Shiva in water. Now there is a mantra for this. You could say Om Namah Shivaya Idam Panchamritam Snaniyam Shivaya Namaha. So, O Lord Shiva, I am bathing you in the 5 nectars. Or Om Namah Shivaya Idam Jala Snaniyam Shivaya Namaha. O Lord Shiva, I am bathing you in water. You can say those mantras and whatnot. Okay. Any questions so far about the meditation mantra? Any questions about the mental worship? Any questions about the Panchamrita Puja so far? I hope you don't mind. I'm taking my time because I don't have to get to the 8:30 class anymore. I'm free. I can just like relax and enjoy. So I'm just like stopping at various points and making sure like, okay, we get the Shiva Puja. Especially since I said all that stuff in the beginning, like Shiva Puja is so important. Do Shiva Puja every day. Seriously, do Shiva Puja every single day. Say these mantras every single day. And that will protect you, I think, more than we can imagine. That would be wonderful, Olivia. Let's do that. Let's just do that together now. This is Laleshwari, right? Just checking. I think this is Lala. Yes. Okay, good. Okay, Lala. Let's do the whole thing. Oh yeah, of course you can have the link for the doc. No problem. So let me share the link, copy link, and then I'm going to put it in the chat again. Okay, let's just chant the whole dhyana mantra together. Let's go back to this. ध्याय नित्यं महेशं रजतगिरिनिभं चारुचन्द्रावतंसं रत्नाकल्पोज्ज्वलाङ्गं परशुमर्गवराभीतिहस्तं प्रसन्नं पद्मासीनं समन्तात् स्तुतममरगनैर्व्यागकृत्तिं वसानं विश्वाद्यं विश्वबीजं निखिलभयहरं पञ्चवक्त्रं त्रिनेत्रम् कर्पूरगौरं करुणावतारं संसारसारं भुजगेन्द्रहारं सदा वसन्तं हृदयारविन्दे भवं भवानी सहितं नमामि कैलासपीठासनमद्य संस्थं भक्तैश्च नन्द्याधिभिसेव्यमानं भक्तार्तिदावानलमप्रमेयं ध्यायेदुमालिङ्गितविश्वरूपं I meditate eternally on that great Lord Shiva, who resembles a shining silver mountain, adorned with crescent moon, whose limbs are flashing with ornaments, and who holds in his hands an axe and a deer, as well as the vara, boon-giving, and abhaya, fear-dispelling mudras. He is seated in the lotus pose, or upon the lotus of the heart, and he is absorbed in deep meditation. He is calm and peaceful. All around him, gods, rishis, goblins, and ghosts are praising him. He is the ground of the universe, and the seed from which it shines forth. He is the dispeller of all fear. He is the 5-headed, 3-eyed Shiva. I bow to Shiva, white as camphor, the very embodiment of compassion, the essence of the universe, adorned with the garland of serpents, whoever dwells in the lotus of the heart, together with Bhavani. One should meditate upon Shiva, seated at the center of his throne on Kailasa, worshipped by Nandi and other devotees. He is that immeasurable wildfire that burns away the afflictions of his devotees, and who, as the cosmic form, is the lingam embraced by the yoni of Uma. Oma, now in your heart you can feel his presence, you can meditate upon him and worship him. Okay, Laleshwari, there's that, hopefully, and you can play that recording back and listen to it. And I'll have Bhairavanandji maybe make a recording because his pronunciation is flawless. So we'll have him go over all of these and chant them so that you can hear them like in a pristine kind of way. Okay, So having said all of that, now we've bathed the lingam. Now let's come to the next part of our class, which is so important, the pañca-Brahmā mantra. So like I said earlier, these are all from the Taittirīyāranyaka, making them quite ancient actually. The Yajur Veda is ancient, unbelievably ancient. And these mantras are from the Yajur Veda. And they're the mantras that were chanted at the beginning of the Śaiva transmission. So there are 5 of them corresponding to the 5 heads of Lord Shiva or 5 parts of Lord Shiva's body. Now, the first name that you'll encounter is Sadyojata. So the first head of Lord Shiva that you're going to praise is the westward facing head named Sadyojata. Then we're going to praise Vamadeva, who is the northward facing head. Then we'll praise Aghora Shiva, who is the southward facing head. Then we'll praise Tatpurusha, who is the eastward facing face. And finally, we'll praise Ishana, who is the upward facing face. So there are 5 faces of Lord Shiva. Now, each of our traditions comes from a particular face. So actually, we grew up in my household in the kind of Aghora lineage, the Dakṣiṇa, you could say. So the Aghora Shiva lineage is particularly important for us. So sometimes when you see me doing Shiva Puja, I will chant the 5 mantras occasionally, but typically I just chant Purva Vaktara and I chant Dakshina Vaktara, just because like that's just the lineage that we're in. But I think honestly, we should chant all 5. We should make it a practice to chant all 5 daily, especially when we're doing Abhishekam, bathing of Lord Shiva. Now, notice there are 5 things that you pour in Panchamritam Puja, right? So there's the water, there's the milk, there's the yogurt, there's the ghee, there's the honey. Notice these 5 things correspond to the 5 chakras, they correspond to the 5 elements, but they also correspond to the 5 faces of Lord Shiva. So I want to offer a suggestion here. With each item, you can offer each of these mantras in order, starting with the Sadyojata mantra, then, pour water, chant to Sadyojata. Then pour milk, chant to Vamadeva. Then pour yogurt, chant to Aghora Shiva. Then pour ghee, chant to Tatpurusha. And finally, pour honey, and you can chant to Ishana, the 5th and reconciling head. So you can do that. You can chant with the 5 amritas, or you can just chant all of them in order while you pour just water. Or you can do the panchamrita, you can pour water using the Trayambakam Yajamahe mantra, and then you can just chant them as a standalone practice. In fact, it's often recommended that you just chant these every single day, no matter what, like as you start your day. And by the way, learning them now will be very important, because later when we learn Trika Puja, when you learn how to worship Paradevi in the context of the Trishalabja Mandala, you'll notice that like we use these mantras a lot for fencing off the quarters. We look to the east and we say this mantra to seal the east and like that. So there's a lot of directional worship using these mantras, and Yantra Puja also requires the use of these mantras. Right? So it's very, very important that we learn these mantras now, and also because it's a very important part of our heritage. And like I said at the beginning of the lecture, it's very, very important that we, let me just give this link, very, very important that we ground ourselves in Shiva Puja. Okay, so having said that, let's get into the mantras now. So this is the order: Sadyojata, Vamadeva, Aghora, Tatpurusha, and finally Ishana. So there are 5 Brahma mantras. They're called the pañca-Brahmā mantras, and they're from the Taittirīyāranyaka. So they're incredibly ancient, incredibly sacred. And so let's look at them now, starting with the first one. So here it is. Sadyojatam prapadyami sadyojataya vai namo namaha bhave bhave nati bhave bhavasvama bhavodbhavaya namaha. I take refuge in the ever-fresh or the newly born Shiva. Prapadyami, I take refuge in you, Sadyojata. Salutations again and again, Namo Namaha, to that Sadyojata Shiva, who is ever-fresh, ever-new. Do not let me be born into mundane existence again and again with every birth. Bhave bhave, nati bhave bhavasvamam. Become my very being, bhavod-bhavaya namaha. Become me, O Lord Shiva. Merge with me, may I merge with you. Salutations to you, the source of all becoming. So that's the first mantra. How beautiful. It's about birth, it's about beginnings. So we chant that, and after we chant Sadyojatam prapadyami Sadyojataya vai namo namaha bhave bhave nati bhave bhavasvama bhavodbhavaya namaha, then you can say Om Sadyojataya Pashima Vaktraya namaha. Salutation to Sadyojata, the westward facing Shiva. Or Om Sadyojataya Pashima Vaktra Shivaya namaha. Pashima means west, Vaktra means face. So Sadyojata is the name. So I praise Sadyojata, the westward facing Shiva. And by the way, some of you might recognize that the Shakta traditions, the various streams of Devi worship, can be traced to these 4 heads, or 5 heads really, and each one reveals a different deity. So Sadyojata reveals the Kubjika Mata or Kubjika Mata tradition. Mata means school, Mata means mother. It's a bit of wordplay there. But Kubjika is one of the deities, one of the 4 deities of the Shakta traditions. So it's Sadyojata who gives that revelation. Kubjika Mata. Okay, next. True. Got to cast the corners. And next we come over here to this next mantra. Here's the Vamadeva mantra. Vamadevaya namo Jyeshtaya nama Shrestaya namo Rudraya nama Kālāya namo Kalavikaranaya namo Balaya namo Balavikaranaya namo Balapramatanaya namo Sarvabhutadamanaya namo Manonmanaya namaha. Salutations to Vamadeva, the eldest, the supreme Rudra or the howling one, to time. So the word Vamadeva is the name. Jyeshta means eldest. So Shreshta means like absolute, the one who creates the universe. Rudra means the howling one. Now this is very important. Kala means time. So this is like Bhairava, right? Like Kālāya namaha. I praise Kala, Mahakala Bhairava. And then the next one is so powerful. Kala Vikaranaya, meaning dynamism. I praise the Vikaras. The Vikara means modifications of time. So I praise time, the transcendent category time, but I also praise time, which is the immanent sequence of events that comes and goes with each passing moment. So I praise time in the transcendent and immanent sense. Mahakala Bhairava, who is Kala Tita and Kala Maya, who is pervading in time and who is beyond time. Okay, Namo Balaya Namaha, meaning the strength. I praise strength. And I praise the modifications of strength, the transformations of strength. And also I praise that which destroys strength. Creation, maintenance, dissolution. I praise that being who subdues all beings, who is Manon Manaya, who is beyond the mind. So this is a fierce mantra. You're like, oh my God, Sadhyo Jata was so sweet. Ever fresh, Shiva, he's born, he's beautiful. Like, please protect me from taking birth again. And this guy, Vamadeva, is like, what the fuck, bro? He devours time. He devours strength. He is time. He's beyond the mind. He subdues all beings. So it's not surprising, right? From Vamadeva comes the Kali Kula. Vamadeva teaches us about Kali. This is the revelation of Vamadeva. So we say then, Om Vamadevaya. Oh, Vama. Fucked up over here. There. Om Vamadevaya Uttaravaktraya Namaha, the northward facing Shiva. Salutations to Vamadeva, the northward facing Shiva. Here comes the next mantra, the third in the series. Aghorebhyo taghorebhyo aghora ghora tarebhyaha sarvabhyo sharva sarvebhyo namaste rudra rupebhyaha. Salutations to the Aghora forms, the gentle Shivas. And all these are in plural, Aghorebhyo. So salutations to the gentle forms. Gorebhyo, salutations to the fierce forms. And Aghora Ghora, salutations to the forms that are both fierce and gentle. In other words, salutations to Para, Para, and Apara. Salutations to all the forms of Rudra. Sharva here is like almost a proper noun. It means the all-pervasive Shiva, but it means like everywhere. So salutations to all the forms of Rudra everywhere. So this is called Aghora Shiva, and from him comes Lalita Tripura Sundari, or Dakṣiṇa Kālī. In other words, the Dakshinamnaya comes from Aghora Shiva. Om Aghoraya Dakṣiṇa Vaktraya Namaha. Salutations to Aghora or Aghora Shiva, the southward facing Shiva. Next up, this mantra you all know. This is a particularly popular mantra, the Tat Purusha mantra. Om Tat Purushaya Vidmahe Mahadevaya Dhimahi Tanno Rudra Prachodayat Om. May that spirit, may that great God, may that Rudra guide my intellect. Om Tat Purushaya Purvavaktraya Namaha. Salutations to Tat Purusha. Oh, not the northward, my God. Sorry, the eastward facing Shiva. So there we go. Now we have the westward facing Shiva over here in the form of Sadyojata. We have the northward facing Shiva in the form of Vamadeva. We have the southward facing Shiva in the form of Aghora Shiva. We have the eastward facing Shiva in the form of Tat Purusha. And Purva also means ancient. So one reason why this mantra is so popular is because it might be the first of them, although it's chanted as the fourth mantra in the sequence. So here we're invoking Shiva in his primordial form as the revealer of the Trika. So the main deity here is Paradevi. So where the northward facing Shiva reveals Kali, where the southward facing Shiva reveals Lalita, where the westward facing Shiva reveals Kubjika, the eastward facing Shiva reveals Paradevi. Okay, so having done all of that, the final mantra in the series, which reconciles all the four, is this one. Ishana sarva vidyanam, Ishvaraha sarva bhutanam, Brahmadipati, Brahmanodipatir, Brahma Shivo me astu, Śaiva sada Shivom, or Śaiva sada Shivom. O Lord of knowledge, he is the Ishana of all knowledge, sarva vidya. And he is the Ishvara of Sarva Bhuta, all beings. O Lord of all knowledge, O Lord of all beings, you are the Adipati. You are the primordial Lord, but not only that, Brahmadi, meaning Brahma, etc. So you are the Pati of Brahma and others. You are the primordial Lord of Brahma, I guess I should say, and the other gods, because that's what Adi means, and also the Brahmanas. So you are the Lord also of the Brahmins, those who perform the worship of Brahma. So, O Lord of knowledge, O Lord of all beings, you are the primordial Lord of Brahma and the other gods, and you are the Lord of the Brahmanas. May you, Shiva, be Brahma for me. You are the eternally auspicious Om. Oh my God, you guys, there's so much going on here. Remember how I said that in the Vedas, different names of different deities at different times get exalted as the absolute principle? Here, we are identifying Shiva as the absolute principle, and we're identifying a kind of theological supremacy. So we're saying, I, as a Brahmana, should worship Brahma. But fuck that. Actually, Brahma as the highest deity is not the highest deity. Shiva is the highest deity. Destruction is the source of all creation. So only he who destroys has the authority to create. Brahma did not really create the universe. Shiva did. If Brahma created the universe, it must be upon Lord Shiva's orders. So this is the kind of language you get in the Puranas, a somewhat sectarian language, but it doesn't need to be taken in that way. It's just a Ishta Devata kind of idea. It's like, okay, Brahma is great. The Brahmanas worship Brahma, that's wonderful, but be Brahma for me. O Lord Shiva, be my God. In other words, Shiva, may you, the Lord of destruction, may you, that time itself who devours, may you be my God. Kind of a goth statement, actually, if you think about it in one way. May my God be the void. And what is that void? It is the eternally auspicious Sadashiva. Sadashiva is, in one sense, a proper noun. It refers to Shiva in his form of Sadashiva, who we just meditated on a few moments ago. But remember, in Sanskrit, there's no proper nouns. So here, Shiva means auspicious. So he is always auspicious. And so what we're saying is, Brahma the creator is great, but Shiva the destroyer is better. Why? Because he's always auspicious, even in destruction. And what is his essential form? The final thing we have to remember here is that his form is Om. And Sarvam Omkara Eva. We learn in the Mandukya Upanishad that all of this is verily Om. It's resonance, it's vibration. So these 5 mantras, this resonance is the resonance of Lord Shiva. Om Ishanaya Ishanaya Urdhvavaktraya Namaha. Salutations to Ishana, the upward facing Shiva. So let's just chant all of these mantras together all the way through. You'll see they're quite powerful, like when you hear them all together. And so my recommendation is that every day you chant these mantras. Even if you aren't performing the Rudrabhishekam, even if you aren't bathing the lingam or anything, you can just chant these mantras as a standalone practice. So let's do all 5 now. And in your mind, you can think of the 5 faces of Lord Shiva. I won't read the translations. I'm just going to chant it all the way through. Sadyojatam prapadyami sadyojataya vai namo namaha bhave bhave nati bhave asvama bhavodbhavaya namaha Vamadevaya namo Jyeshtaya namo Shrestaya namo Rudraya namo Kālāya namo Kalavikarnāya namo Balaya namo Balavikarnāya namo Balapramatanaaya namo Sarvabhutadamanaya namo Manonmanaya namaha Om Aghorebhyo Taghorebhyo Aghora Ghora Taribhyaha Sarvabhyo Sharva Sarvebhyo Namaste Rudra Rupebhyaha Om Tat Purushaya Vidmahe Mahadevaya Dhimahi Tanno Rudra Prachodayat Om Ishana Sarva Vidyanam Ishwarah Sarva Bhutanam Brahmadipati Brahmanodipatir Brahma Shivo Me Astu Saeva Sada Shiva Om. Now again slowly, and this time let's add those Pranamaha mantras that we have over here after the translation. Sadyo Jatam Prapadyami Sadyo Jataya Vai Namo Namaha Bhave Bhave Nati Bhave Bhavasvamam Bhavodbhavaya Namaha Om Sadyo Jataya Pashimavaktraya Namaha Vamadevaya Namo Jyeshtaya Namo Shrestaya Namo Rudraya Namo Kālāya Namo Kalavikarnāya namo Balaya namo Balavikarnāya namo Balapramatanaaya namo Sarvabhutadamanaya namo Manonmanaya namaha Om Vamadevaya Uttaravaktraya namaha Aghorebhyo Taghorebhyo घोरघोरतरेभ्यः सर्वभ्यो सर्वेभ्यो नमस्ते रुद्ररूपेभ्यः ॐ अघोराय दक्षिणवक्त्राय नमः ॐ तत्पुरुषाय विद्महे महादेवाय धीमहि तन्नो रुद्रः प्रचोदयात् ॐ तत्पुरुषाय पूर्ववक्त्राय नमः ॐ ईशान सर्वविद्यानाम् ईश्वर सर्वभूतानां ब्रह्माधिपति ब्रह्मणोऽधिपति ब्रह्मा शिवो मे अस्तु स एव सदा शिवम् Om Jayama Jayama. Of course, my pronunciation and intonation is far from ideal, so I highly recommend that we listen to some YouTube videos also, and then listen to some various chanting styles and whatnot. And of course, it's nice to hear when it's chanted all together. When a group of brahmanas or panditas come together and chant together in that kind of like Vedic sense, oh my god, you get chills. And hopefully even now you can feel there's a power to these mantras, a purity. And yes, they are Vedic mantras with swaras. That's why, like, panditas who are very trained in the Vedas will know that I just butchered those. There are very precise swaras that you could be very precise about. Like I said, you guys, there's infinite refinement that you can have with any of these things. You know, like form and function are both important. And sometimes we tend to lean towards feeling and function. I'm born in a Kshatriya family, you know, like I'm more interested in function. But the Brahmanas, those who are born in Pandita families, they might be very, very skilled at chanting it in the Swara way, with the Vedic way. So that's why I say here, I have to acknowledge my limitations. Like I'm not chanting it in the perfect way with the perfect pronunciation using the Swaras. And therefore, I recommend you chant it along with a YouTube video or something like that. But even now, hopefully, you can feel the power of the mantra. Jaima. Nandita Devi, Jaima, Jaima, Jaima. Good to see you made it home safe. Nandita Ma was just here the other night, and so we were like, okay, let's just get a pizza. And for whatever reason, we decided to get a 23-inch pizza. And I know it's how you use it, I know, but I didn't know what 23-inch meant. So this is the first time I ordered a 23-inch pizza. Weirdly enough, the Uber Eats thing, the app, didn't allow us to put any toppings on it. So I was like, okay, here comes a cheese pizza with no toppings whatsoever. And I was not prepared for how big it was going to be, and the thing could not even fit through the door. Like, I was like at the door, and I was like, our apartment is literally too small for this pizza right now. Anyway, so that was last time. That was a Monday night's class, I think. Anyway, happy you're safely home. And sorry we'll miss you in Denver. I was hoping we get a chance to see you, but right. Okay, so you guys, I think that's it for the pañca-Brahmā mantras. Any questions? Again, you can chant these mantras while you pour each of the panchamritas, or you can chant this mantra while you pour water, or you can just chant all these 5 mantras on their own as a standalone kind of practice. And this I highly recommend for everyone, like as a daily practice, because you'll find that you can get a lot of grounding from chanting these 5 Shiva mantras. And also, I think you might find that if you chant them, you'll have, I think, a deeper connection to the Shakta traditions. Because remember, all those Shakta traditions that we study together, they emerge within Shaivism as a development of one's inquiry into Shiva. Shiva's essence is Shakti, but to get to that essence, we go through Shiva in one sense. And then to get to Shiva, as we'll learn in the Vijnana Bhairava, we go through Shakti. Okay, so I think that's that for the pañca-Brahmā mantras. Any questions, comments, concerns here before we continue? We're almost done. We only have 2 sections left in the puja. So having done all of these mantras, the next thing now is the panchopachara puja. Upachara means items. Pancha upachara means pancha plus upachara becomes panchopachara because of the rules of sandhi. A plus u becomes o generally. So panchopachara puja means 5-item worship. And Shanideva, who is responsible for structuring this document, he's offered an appendix in which you can see the structure of different types of pujas, like 5-item, 10-item, 16-item, etc. So the 5-item worship is the simplest form of puja. I mean, no, that's not true. The simplest form of puja is a single flower, ekopachara. But this is, I think, a very good thing to try out. 5 items, you know. So the 5 items are, and by the way, different tantras have different orders for these things. But in our tradition, we offer fragrance, then flowers, then bilva leaves, then incense, then fire, then food, then water. And now you're like, oh my God, these are not 5 things. Basically, it's fragrance, flower, incense, fire, food. Fragrance, flower, incense, fire, food. I wish the incense had an F word because then they can all be Fs. The 5 Fs: fragrance, flower, fucking incense, fire, and food. Don't forget to offer some fucking incense, you guys. Anyway, so we have 5 items, but here it's slightly more than 5 items. We've expanded it a little bit. Frankincense, fumes, you guys, that was way better. Fragrance, flower, fumes, fire, food. Frankie sticks, I guess. I don't know. Now, there are mantras, of course, for all of these things. And in the Bhagavata Purana, they make a distinction between offering things with or without mantras. And it's perfectly fine to offer things without mantras. By the way, they argue like that's what people do. They just put something on the altar and just feel like they're offering something. You don't have to say a mantra. But we argue that if you say the mantra while you make the offering, it is that much more effective and that much more desirable. So it's not not a hard and fast rule. It's not necessary, but I highly recommend you learn to do so. So with each item, as you offer each item, you chant the following mantras. So for the fragrance, by the way, you can offer some bhasma, some ash if you have it. Or this is what I prefer to do is you can take a flower and spray the flower with some perfume or rub some essential oil into the flower. So this is the gandha, but you're using the flower as a vehicle to give the gandha. And so in one sense, you're offering a flower twice. So we start with this. Om Namah Shivaya Esha Gandha Shivaya Namaha. Place the fragrant flower at the lingam. Next. Now this flower is the flower offering, so this could be the best flower that you have, the biggest and the nicest flower. You can of course dip it in sandalwood paste if you have some, and the word sachandana means with sandalwood, and it's usually recommended that whenever we offer flowers, we make it fragrant first. If you don't have sandalwood, it's okay. You can just make it fragrant with any other essential oil or perfume, but we typically don't like to offer flowers unless they are fragrant. So now we say, Om Namah Shivaya Idam Sachandana Pushpam Shivaya Namaha. Oh Lord Shiva, here is a fragrant flower. By the way, I should say these mantras more slowly. I'm sorry, you guys. Because of doing puja daily, they become very quick. And so I sometimes rush through them. So let me try to say that again slowly. Om Namah Shivaya Esha Gandha Shivaya Namaha. Om Namah Shivaya Idam Sachandana Pushpam Shivaya Namaha. Next up, Lord Shiva is very fond of vilva leaves. If you have them, you can offer them. But instead of vilva leaves, you can instead offer like rose leaves because the rose leaves are 3. And then Pushpa Devi actually brought to the house these hawthorn leaves. I'd never seen them before, but they're so perfect. In fact, let me show you. This is it's dried up now, but this is what Pushpa Devi brought from her garden last week. And I was like, oh my God, what is this? They're hawthorn. I can't say it. Hawthorn. I don't know. Well, whatever the fuck this is. They look so much like Vilva. They're so beautiful. So whatever like looks like this, right? It doesn't have to be Vilva. Now, if it's not Vilva, there's a mantra for that. Vilva patrartha tripatram. So tripatra means 3 petaled leaves. Vilva patra means Vilva leaves. Artha means substitute or for the purposes of. So if I don't have Vilva leaves, I will say Om Namah Shivaya Idam Vilva patrartha tripatram Shivaya Namaha. If I do have Vilva leaves, I would say Om Namah Shivaya Idam Vilva Patram Shivaya Namaha. Now, just like flowers, we tend to offer Vilva leaves along with sandalwood paste. So rubbing some sandalwood paste, and you can see the sandalwood paste like rubbed into the leaf. So rubbing some sandalwood paste into the leaf, we say Om Namah Shivaya Idam Sachandana Vilva Patrartha Tripatram Shivaya Namaha, and place that on top of your Shiva lingam. So you've offered fragrance, you've offered flowers, you've offered a few Vilva leaves. Now let's offer the fucking incense. So it can be a single stick, and Rajiv ji is asking, what kind of incense? Really, anything will do. Agrabati, dhoop, it's really up to you. And if you want to get very specific, there are certain like deities that like certain smells, but it's generally said that all deities love incense of all kinds, fragrant incense. So I often recommend don't buy cheap incenses because often they're just like perfumey and chemically and not so good for your health. So, and also because a lot of times it's made with a lot of cruelty, like, so you have to be careful about purchasing incense. And so it's nice to sometimes, if you have the means, invest in a slightly better incense because it might really affect the quality of your puja to have good incense, So I like certain brands. I'm not going to mention what brands I like because I'm not going to sponsor any, I'm not going to endorse any companies here, but each of us have our own like favorite kinds of incense. And ideally, they're like natural, organic incenses, so they're like better for your health, especially since you're burning so much of it. You don't want to be surrounded by fumes that are toxic for you. And so many incense companies just produce really cheap, really perfumey incense. It's actually one of my pet peeves. People sometimes bring incense to the house, but like I'm kind of particular about the quality of incense that I burn for God. And so I don't like to burn all these like cheap kind of like bottom shelf incense, you know. Like what money I have, what little of it is there, I like to make sure I have the best version of everything for God. And incense I'm very particular about. I want natural, organic, quality incense. But it doesn't really matter to me what the fragrance is. We have so many different kinds of fragrances. So yeah, anything. Jasmine might be really nice. Lord Shiva is very fond of jasmine. Anyway, so you can offer some incense. And then again, just one stick of incense, light it, and don't blow it out. We just wave the incense, and so we take the fire off like this. We don't blow it because we don't want to spit on an offering that we're about to give God, unless you're a Vamachara practitioner. That's a whole other thing. But now with your right hand, unless you're a Vamachara practitioner, and that's a whole other thing, you offer with your left hand. But now you offer with your right hand and hold the bell in your left hand. And with the bell in your left hand, ring the bell and wave the incense with your right hand. Now you can just wave the incense 3 times around the deity. Notice how I'm holding. When we hold incense, we try not to we try to hold it in like a way like this or like this, you know? So holding the incense like that. I like to hold it in Apana Mudra like this. So holding incense, wave it 3 times around the feet, 3 times around the heart, 4 times around the face, and 3 times around the whole body, or just 3 times around the whole body. And now while you wave the incense, you can chant these mantras. Any of these mantras that you learned. And typically we chant the Gayatri, Shiva Gayatri mantra, which is the Tat Purusha mantra. So just chant this. Oh, what is it? Oh, this one. As you wave the incense, ring the bell, chant Om Tat Purushaya Vidmahe Mahadevaya Dhimahi Tanno Rudra Prachodayat Om. And after you offer incense, now you can offer some deepa, some light in the exact same way. So with a candle or with a ghee lamp, practicing fire safety, of course, ring the bell and say, Om Namah Shivaya Esha Deepaha Shivaya Namaha. And in the exact same way, wave the light thrice around the feet, thrice around the heart, 4 times around the face, 3 times around the whole body, all the while chanting Om Tat Purushaya Vidmahe Mahadevaya Dhimahi Tanno Rudra Prachodayat. Put the incense and fire aside. And now, ideally, before you come to puja, you've prepared some fruits and sweets and other offerings. So place these in a tray, in a plate, maybe in front of Lord Shiva, and then say, Om Namah Shivaya Idam Naivedyam Shivaya Namaha. If you want, you can sprinkle a little bit of water on the food just to feel like Lord Shiva is receiving it. Of course, some of you know you can sprinkle and do the pranaya nama, panaya nama, vyanaya. We don't get into that right now. It's enough just to put the flavor, the fruits and sweets and whatnot in front of Lord Shiva and just sprinkle it and feel like he's taken it. Om Namah Shivaya Idam Naivedyam Shivaya Namaha. And of course, once you've given him something to eat, you should also give him something to drink. So with one glass of water or something, you can say Om Namah Shivaya Idam Paniyodakam Shivaya Namaha. So Pani is water, Udakam. So Paniyam Udakam. So Udakam is drinking. So or Panartodakam, water for the purposes of drinking. So this means drinking water. So, O Lord Shiva, I give you water to drink. Om Namah Shivayadam Panartodakam Shivaya Namaha, or Om Namah Shivayadam Paniyodakam Shivaya Namaha. And now, this is very much the case in Indian culture, but it's like the idea of like when you finish eating, you want to rinse your mouth. And so we offer a little more water for rinsing the mouth. Om Namah Shivaya Idam Achmani Odakam Shivaya Namaha. Here is some water for rinsing your mouth. Um, in fact, I kind of just like this mantra. Achamaniyam. Om Namah Shivayam Achamaniyam Shivaya Namaha. And then if you want, you can offer some Tic Tacs or something. Typically, this is a pan leaf inside of which there's some like tobacco and various other things. It's called a tambula. So if you have tambula, you can actually get it. Kolkata pan, you know, it's a brand. It's called Kolkata pan. You can buy it online. Some of you might like it. It's an acquired taste, of course. But it's a breath mint. So Tic Tacs will do, honestly. So Om Namah Shivaya Idam Tambulam Shivaya Namaha. Totally optional. You can just offer this fragrance, this flower, this incense, this fire, and this food. All this other stuff, water and water for rinsing the mouth, these vilva leaves, they're just like extraneous. We just threw them in there. Now, when we finish offering the 5 items, there's one final thing to do, and this is actually really beautiful. Take in your 2 palms like this, a bunch of flower petals and leaves. And then with your 2 palms, you're going to offer Pushpanjalihi to Lord Shiva. So you can like shower Shiva in flowers. We do this 3 times. So offer 3 handfuls of flowers and or 3 petal leaves, saying each time, Om Namah Shivaya, Esha, Sachandana, Pushpa, and if you have leaves, then you would say also Patranjalihi. So leaves would be, you add this inside here. But if it's just flowers, you say it 3 times. Om Namah Shivaya Esha Sachandana Pushpanjalihi Shivaya Namaha once. And then again, pick up another handful. Om Namah Shivaya Esha Sachandana Pushpanjalihi Shivaya Namaha. And one more time. Om Namah Shivaya Esha Sachandana Pushpanjalihi Shivaya Namaha. Or if you have leaves also, Esha Sachandana Pushpa Patranjalihi Shivaya Namaha. Oh Lord Shiva, I make this offering of flowers and leaves, fragrant flowers and leaves. And this whole thing is called the Panchopachara Puja or Bahir Puja, external worship. Okay, having completed that, we're not yet quite done because having worshipped Shiva, we should now worship like his retinue. So we can expand this section. We could also do a Shadanga Puja. In fact, I'll probably add that to the Padati. So the first mantra would be Om Eteganda Pushpe Shivaya Shadanga Devatabhya Namaha. Oh Lord Shiva, I worship all the gods of your 6 limbs. That's not here right now. Don't worry about it for now. But the next mantra is Om Etegashpe Ashtamurtibhyo Namaha. I worship the 8 Bhairavas or the 8 forms of Lord Shiva. Asatanga Bhairava, Ruru Bhairava, Chanda Bhairava, etc. We talked about these 2 weeks ago. And then finally, you can't worship Shiva without worshipping Bhavani. Bhavani is the goddess, and here her name is Gauri or Uma. So Om Hrim, Bija mantra. Usually a red flower. Ete ganda pushpe gauriye namaha. And by the way, these are red flowers. Because Bhairavas are fierce forms, so we like to give them red flowers. And generally, red flowers are for the goddess. So, having done this, you can of course now chant the Kadagamala Stotram, you can do a Devi Puja, but having just done this, let's just go to the Pranamaha, the final thing you're going to do, which is just the prayer. In fact, it's not the final thing because so there's japa, but start with this. Now we pray to Lord Shiva. And this final prayer, it's just so sweet. Let me sing it for you. Om Namah Shivaya Shantaya Karanatraya Hetave Nivedayami Chatmanam Gatistvam Parameshwara Om Namastubhyam Virupaksha Namaste Divya Chakshushe Namah Pinaka Hastaya Vajra Hastaya Vai Namaha Om Namastrishula Hastaya Danda Pashashi Panaye Namastrelokya Nathaya Bhutanam Pataye Namaha. I praise that peaceful Shiva, who is the creator of the 3 worlds, or who is the cause, the karana of the 3 worlds. I offer myself to you and take refuge in you who are the Supreme Lord, you who are the 3-eyed one, who has the 3rd eye of knowledge, you who hold in your hands the trident and the lightning bolt, the staff and the snare, Pasha. Salutations to you, the Lord of the 3 worlds, the Lord of ghosts, the Lord of all embodied beings. Bhutanam patayena. Bhuta can mean beings, it can also mean ghosts. So salutations to Lord Shiva, Lord of ghosts or Lord of beings. And having done the prayer, now notice you've done so much already to bring the living presence of Lord Shiva into your space. So to recap, you've done some nyasa, you did the dhyana mantra, you did the manasa puja, so consecration, meditation, mental worship. Then you visualize Lord Shiva coming into the lingam, called avahanam. Then you did bahir puja, external worship to the murti. Then having done that, you worshipped the avarana, the retinue or attendants of Lord Shiva. And finally, you offered this prayer. So all of these sections have been completed. Nyasa, consecration, dhyana, meditation, manasa puja, inner worship, bahir puja, external worship, avarana puja, and of course pranamaha puja. So you've done all these things including a prayer. So now Lord Shiva's presence is in the room. You can, for the rest of your time, just do japa. So you can use Om or Namah Shivaya, you can use any of the pañca-Brahmā mantras, and you can just sit there and repeat that mantra again and again and again. And there is a mantra for offering japa, Guyati Guya Gopta Tvam Grihana Smatkritam Japam. So when you finish your japa, you can offer your japa with this additional mantra. I'll also put that in the Padati. Guyati Guya Gopta Tvam. O Lord Shiva, you are the protector of the secret of all secrets. Guya, Ati Guya, Gopta, Tvam, you Tvam are the Gopta, the protector of all these secrets. Guyati Guya Gopta Tvam, Grihana Smatkritam Japam. Please take my japa. Grihana, here, take my japa. Grihana Smatkritam Japam. Siddhir me bhavatu Deva. O God, O Deva, make me perfect. Siddhir me bhavatu Deva. Tat prasadan Maheshwara. O Lord Shiva, O Maheshwara, let this be an offering to you. Tat prasadan Maheshwara. There's a mantra you can say at the end of all your japa practice. I'll put that in the Padati for later. So I owe you 3 things. I owe you the Rishyadinyasa, I owe you the Shiva Manasa Puja shlokas, and I owe you this japas samarpana mantra. But having said all of this, this is a complete Shiva puja. If you just do everything that we said in this video, you will have the whole, or in this class, you'll have the whole Shiva sadhana. And this will be a really, I think, really important foundation for all subsequent Shakti sadhanas. Okay. Thank you all so much. Om Namah Shivaya. Shivarpanam Astu. Any questions, comments, concerns? Let's take a pause for a little bit and just check in with everybody. Jai Ma.